All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'd like to convene the Single Family Design Board for February 1st. May I have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Here.
Board Member Colas,
Here.
Board Member Klein, here, Board Member Mokisha,
Here.
Board Member Sweeney, and Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any member of the public who would like to address the board for up to 2 minutes may, subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. Do we have anyone that would like to speak, Barbara?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on an item not on today's agenda, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates to me that you wish to speak. And while we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written comment for items not on today's agenda?
Thank you, Barbara. We did not receive any general written correspondence. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There are no hands raised, so Chair Miller, I will hand it back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item B, approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board meeting for January 19th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
May I have a second? All right,
second.
thank you. I think Fred beat you to it. All right, can we go through the item?
All right.
I have a window open and there's a lot of construction. Let me close the window. I'll be right back. I apologize. 459 El Cielito Road. Item 2, 1236 West Mitchell Terreno Street. Item number 3, 34 East Padragosa Street. Item number 4, 3429 Sea Ledge Lane. Hearing no changes or amendments, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kawas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, approval of the consent calendar for January 19th. May I have a motion for approval, please?
So move. I second it.
Okay, who? Did you get that, Mary?
Yes.
I guess you did. Okay, good. Thank you. So Barbara, if you please go through the items for us, please.
Sure. Item A was 230 East Constance Avenue. The motion was to continue indefinitely with comments. Item B was 518 East Silva Street. The motion was for project design approval and final approval. Item C was 801 West Pedregosa Street. The motion was for project design approval and final approval. That was it.
And could you please share who the
Oh.
items were
Yes.
reviewed
Yes,
by?
thank you. The reviewers were members Klein and Motisha.
Great, thank you, thank you. Moving on to the approval of the consent calendar for January 25th. May I have a motion for approval?
Mr. Chair, we need to vote on that motion.
Oh, forgot. Sorry. May I have a roll call? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kawas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, moving on to January 25th. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second. Beat ya.
Can you go through the items, please, Barbara?
Yes.
Second.
Item A was 407 North Ridge Road. The motion was for project design approval. Oh, I'm sorry. That item was postponed to a date certain of February 1st, 2021 due to the applicant's absence. Item B was 2414 Anacapa Street. The motion was for project design approval and final approval. Item C was for 876 Paseo Ferrillo. The motion was for final approval. And the reviewers were board members Klein and Motisha.
Can we go over item A again? Who is the client and the applicant for that item? Edward Jerome. Okay,
It was
thank you.
407 North Ridge Road. And we just had a misunderstanding with the applicant. He was
Okay.
not in attendance, so we postponed the item for today.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please? Well, before we have a roll call, I apologize. I wasn't clear. Were these projects given design approval, or were they just, when you're speaking, I'm not sure what you said. Were they granted approval?
407 North Ridge Road was not given project design approval on
Because-
January 25th.
And what about the other items? I apologize.
The other items were, yes.
Okay, you were given, okay, all right, thank you. Just want to get some clarification. May I have a roll call, please?
All right, we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kuloff,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
And Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a third item, February 1st. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Can you go through the items, please? Thank you.
Yes. Item A was 407 North Ridge Road. The motion was for project design approval with comments. Item B was 2219 Anacapa Street. The motion was for project design approval. Item C was 422 Allen Road. The motion was for project design approval and final approval. And item D was 843 Calle Cortita. The motion was for final approval. And the reviewers were members Klein and Motisha.
So Barbara, I need to ask you, the motion was given, but was it granted?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
All right, we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kuloff,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have anything of that nature, Barbara?
Board Member Miller, we do not. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And I don't believe we have any subcommittee reports, is that correct? Hearing none, I think that is a no. Let's move on to our first item. It's an accessory dwelling unit. We have a special speaker to speak about that. Are they here? Ted?
Good afternoon, board members and We also have Brenda Belt and Rosie Deisty here, two ADU experts on staff. They'll be here to answer questions. And we've got a PowerPoint. Timmy, if you could pull that up, please. And we'll just get going on that. So I'm just going to run through this PowerPoint, and then we'll have time at the end for some questions. And I do appreciate your interest in having this discussion. I think it'll be very informative. So, all right, next slide, please. Okay, so here's just a timeline for the ADU regulations that have been in effect the last few years. So in June 2018, the Title 30 zoning ordinance for ADUs was adopted, and until January 2020, that was in effect. So January of last year, the new state law came into effect and put all of our ADU applications under state law purview until we could, make our own ordinance. So December 10th of this year, of 2020, the amended Title 30 ADU ordinance became effective. And then later this year, we're hoping that the ordinance will become effective in the coastal zone for Title 28 once the Coastal Commission accepts it. All right, next slide, please. So what effect does this have on current applications? So for new applications going forward in Title 30, that is applications that are not in the coastal zone, the new ordinance applies. So anything that was submitted after December 10th is in the new ordinance. For existing applications, those that do not have permits issued by February 8th of this year, which is a week from today, then those will need to go back through plan check and will be under the current ordinance. So originally they received plan check under state law, then they'll need to go back through and be reviewed per our current ordinance. And then in the coastal zone, state law still applies until the new ordinance can become effective there. So next slide, please. All right, and so here's some key changes to the ADU ordinance. So now they're allowed everywhere in the city, including the high fire hazard areas. The new ordinance did away with the temporary prohibition on ADUs in high fire hazard areas, and they now allow a certain type, which is the special ADU. And it's called something else under state law, but our clever staff decided to call it a special ADU to differentiate it. The dimensions for it are, if it's a detached ADU, it's going to be maximum 800 square feet. And it's going to have a maximum height of 16 feet. If it's a conversion of existing floor area, that is no addition of new floor area, there's no maximum size. And for a junior special ADU, the maximum size is 500 square feet. So that is the type that's allowed currently in the extreme foothill and foothill high fire hazard areas. And then the other thing that, of course, we're going to talk about at this discussion is any ADUs that don't meet the architectural design criteria now go to design review. So next slide, please. All right, so just a little bit of background here on the design criteria, just to remind you. The design criteria were originally drafted in 2018 with input from the design review boards. And these criteria must be met in order for the ADU to be processed ministerially, that is to avoid design review. And it's zoning staff's job to review these permits, these applications for consistency with those criteria. And the review includes all of the contiguous interior livable floor area and also any exterior alterations that are attached to and integral to the ADU. And so if the ADU does not meet these criteria, then the applicant can either choose to go to design review or choose to redesign to comply with the design standards. So this slide shows some pretty simple ones that you might already be aware of. The first is no shiny roofing or siding. So we're all familiar with the potential for things like standing seam metal roofs to shine. That wouldn't be allowed in order to avoid design review. And then Any tile that's proposed has to be C tile. It can't have S tile as shown in this photo here. Unless of course it's to match existing S tile on the main primary residence. Same goes for the glass railings. These glass guardrails are not allowed unless they're to match an existing primary residence. And then bubble skylights or dome skylights are not allowed. They have to be flat panel. Then on the right, you see a picture of what looks like an ADU that's just built in a garage, and they left the garage door opening there. Can't do that. You have to enclose the wall and add residential windows and doors. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the next ones I'll go through briefly because their wording is a little bit lengthy in the ordinance, and I don't want to spend too much time on the PowerPoint here. There is a maximum of 250 cubic yards for grading. So if you're doing more than that, or if you're grading on a slope of 15% or greater and your cut and fill exceeds 200 cubic yards, you have to go to design review. There's a height limitation as well. The ADU shall not exceed the height of the primary residence, number of stories of the primary unit, or 17 feet. And that is not applicable to ADUs above a garage, as long as the ADU does not exceed the maximum height or the number of stories for the zone. Okay, and next is the front yard location. So detached ADUs are allowed in the front yard, but they have to meet certain standards. They need to be a minimum of 20 feet back from all the front lot lines, or meet the minimum front setback for the zone, whichever one of those is greater. And they can't be, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit confused here. This is why I didn't want to read all of this. So the height limitation is not applicable to an ADU that's built above a garage. But again, the garage can't exceed the height limits for the zone. All right, for design style, basically the ADU has to be compatible, or basically it has to match the existing residence. So those that clearly don't match the existing residence in style will go to SFDB or other design review boards for review. And then for privacy standards, you're all familiar with things like the upper story decks that you've been reviewing. Those will need to go to design review as well. And there are several more criteria that are listed in the ordinance regarding privacy. Okay, so next slide, please. So there are exceptions available. So if an applicant wants to apply for an exception to one of these criteria, then they need to get design review approval from ABR, HLC, or SFDB. And also, it's important to note that approval for additional improvements on the site that are not necessarily integral to the ADU, but are proposed with the ADU might require design review as well. So next slide. So here's three main examples of types of ADUs that you'll see at SFDB. So, staff will guide you on what is in your purview when these do come through. Number one would be alterations to the primary residence that need SFDB, but where the ADU is exempt from discretionary design review. So say you're proposing alterations to the house and then ADU on a separate permit, ADU doesn't require discretionary, you might see that. You might see a case where an ADU is constructed above a garage and it is, the garage itself is not exempt from design review, but the ADU is. And third, you might see an ADU that needs SFDB, but is not exempt because it doesn't meet the design review criteria. So we're going to talk about that last category here. So next slide. All right, so here are just 4 common types of exceptions that we anticipate will be under SFDB purview. There may be more that we haven't thought of yet because this ordinance is relatively new, but this is just a short list we came up with. So one, of course, is the upper story deck. So you're used to seeing these decks that are over 20 square feet or located within 15 feet of any property line will require SFDB review. Next slide, please. And then upper story ADU additions above existing single story residences, not including ADUs built above garages, will require SFDB. And in this case, the entire structure is under SFDB purview. All right, and then next slide, we have ADUs located in the front yard. So if you're proposing an ADU right here in the front yard, as this photo shows, then the ADU will be in SFDB purview. All right, and then the last one, next slide. So if your ADU is, you know, some kind of modern modular unit and your main residence is Spanish colonial, those two architectural styles clearly don't match. So that type of application will be under SFDB purview. All right, and then last slide. So again, just to recap, the zoning staff will ensure that the ADU meets zoning regulations, and then note for the applicant if what they're proposing is, you know, requires an exception, and the applicant has the choice to redesign or go to design review. And then design review staff will guide SFDB's review of the applications, either through written memoranda if it's a more complicated project, or verbal comments in the meetings. And then SFDB should review these projects for consistency with the applicable guidelines. And again, staff will guide you on what those are when the applications come through. And then here at the bottom, I have some helpful resources, links to the new ordinance amendments, and then a link to the What's New with ADUs community webinar, which was held January 13th of this year. So we'll forward this PowerPoint to all of you after the meeting so that you can review it and click on these links at your leisure. And I'd like to welcome Ms. Beltz and Ms. Deisty in to help answer any of your questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ted. I actually have one quick question. Can you hear me?
Chair Miller, yes, we can hear you. I think we need to do public comment because this is an agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the instructions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates to me that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written comment for this item?
Thank you, Barbara and Chair Miller. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no hands raised, so Chair Miller, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, I have a quick question regarding SFDB review. Has this changed? Because I know we've had ADUs come before us where we couldn't comment. Is that because they had satisfied their criteria in terms of ADU exemption, or is there any changes from what we're used to?
Hi, I'm Rosie Deisty. I'm the project planner who brought the ordinance amendments through adoption, so I'll go ahead and answer that one. It really hasn't changed this year. Basically, if they met the criteria, then they did not require SFDB review, but if they wanted something different from what was in the criteria, either since 2018 or as we've amended it, then it would come to you.
All right, thank you. So does anyone else on the board, I can go down the roster here and just call your names if you have any questions or if anyone wants to speak up.
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, right.
Unless you want to go in order, if you want to go in order, Chair Miller, that's fine. I don't know where you're going with that.
Let's do that for sake of time. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have did what I did, but I did. Anyway, Chair Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, I have a few. Let's see, I was making notes while Ted was presenting. On the existing floor area under ADU, you indicated that there was no limit on the square footage inside a house. I think that was on the first or second slide.
Board Member Sweeney, so if the ADU is a conversion, it could be converting a room inside a house or an entirely detached accessory structure. Then there's no maximum size because it's already there. They're just, we're assuming they're converting the entire structure to an ADU.
So what happened to the 1,200 square foot or 50% criteria? Did that go away?
I believe you're referring to the maximum size of a detached, what we call standard accessory dwelling unit, which is 1,200 square feet, but it's based on a sliding scale of lot size to unit size.
Yes,
So
right.
yeah, so this slide is focusing on the new sort of special ADUs, but we still have what we call standard ADUs, and they range from, let's see, 500 square feet to, sorry, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Brenda, do you remember the range in sizes for standard ADUs?
Yeah, the reason I'm asking the question, it just seems like someone could make a whole 1,400 square foot house an ADU based on that line. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to clarify.
Hi, this is Brenda Beltz. I'm one of the zoning plan checkers for the city. So there is a maximum size for new construction detached ADUs. And I think it ranges from 850 to 1,200, depending on your lot size. And there's also a maximum size for additions. So if you were proposing new floor area that was attached, it would be a maximum of 50% of the floor area of the existing residence. You can't convert an entire house to an ADU. You can convert a portion, but not 100%.
That was why I was asking, because we saw a home a year or so ago, maybe more, that was being proposed as a brand new home. And in the middle of that home, they were proposing an ADU, and it was a little bigger than 1,200 square feet. It was literally in the middle of the house. And we were told we couldn't make any comments about the windows and doors in that portion of the wall that was part of that ADU. And it was being built as part of I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home. And the 1,200 square feet was in addition to that. So that's why I'm asking, the way that sentence is worded, one could read it as, oh, I can make several rooms in a house an ADU. And because there's no limit, it could be 1,500 square feet in a 5,000 square foot house. I guess that's why I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and yes, you are correct. They could do that. So the state law, one of the previous versions limited it to a maximum of 1,200, but they removed that recently. So now it's just 50%. 50% of the existing primary dwelling is the max if it's attached.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then I have another question with regards to decks and staircases. Under one of your slides, you indicated that all of those larger than 20 square feet and that are within 15 feet of the property line come to our board for determination. So essentially what you're saying is, if we so choose, depending on the circumstances of the application, we could deny a staircase and a deck, or either one, if it's within our 15-foot guideline, correct?
Rosie, did you want me to answer that one? Okay.
Sorry. Yes, please.
Yes. Yes. So there are some ministerial criteria for decks for privacy, so they can propose it 15 feet away, or they can put up a, like a barrier, like a privacy barrier, that's 5 feet tall. But if they don't want to meet the ministerial criteria and they're proposing something different and they come to you, yeah, it's discretionary. So you would have the ability to deny it if it's
So,
discretionary.
they're not able to make the argument, look, I'm allowed an ADU up on a second floor and you can't deny me a staircase anywhere I want to put it.
Well, I think it would depend on the staircase. If that's the only way to get into the ADU, they'd have to be, you have to be able to get into the ADU. But I guess I was referring more to the deck, right? If the deck is not necessary for the ADU, then that could be denied.
Right. We had a recent project where that was the circumstance. That's why I'm asking. Let's see, on matching the architectural style of an existing structure to a detached new ADU, I thought I read somewhere that if it was more than 20 feet, the style didn't have to match the main house, or was that the old, or is that the state law?
Yeah, no, you're correct. There's a list of things that we require it to match. So it has to match. I'd have to look at the ordinance again, but it has to match if it's within 20 feet, if it's in the front yard, if it's on a historic property. And was there something else, Rosie? Do you have the ordinance on that list of things? Did I get them all?
Yeah, I do have the ordinance in front of me. I think you got them all. You
Okay,
know,
so
there's
it
other
was-
things that have to match the smaller features, but the whole unit matching. Yeah,
So if it's more than 20 feet, it doesn't have to match.
Correct, yeah.
correct.
Okay.
And those other things,
Um,
right?
And then on the new ADU on top of the garage, two questions. Is it allowed on a new garage and at any height, or does it have to be built on an existing garage?
Could be a new garage.
It could be a new garage, and it could be 30 feet high, correct, without any review.
Correct. It has to meet the solar height ordinance,
Uh-huh.
but yes, it could be up to 30.
30 feet. But if it didn't have a solar problem with an adjacent property, it could go to 30 feet. Okay,
Right.
and then my last question is, do these ADUs for certain circumstances still have to go to the staff hearing officer for modifications or exemptions, or is that strictly the purview of the SFPD?
Applicants can request modifications the same as any other project. So ADUs have a reduced setback that's only 4 feet. So that doesn't require a modification. But let's say they wanted to propose it at 3 feet, then that's not allowed by right. They would need to request a zoning modification if they wanted it to be closer than 4 feet with an interior setback. So as an example.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Sweeney. Chair Colais, do you have any questions, please? And I apologize, can you say your last name again? Eventually I'll remember.
You beat me to it. My last name is pronounced Colas.
Colas, thank you.
Mr. Sweeney asked most of my questions. I have one question a clarifying question in regards to the front yard setback. So in many areas of the city, we have property lines that are common to the right-of-way line. But in some conditions, we have properties that run to center line of street where right-of-way is within that. Is the front yard or the 20-foot requirement that you're referring to related to those front yards, where would that be taken from in those circumstances?
Can you answer this one, Brenda?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The front setback is always measured from the front lot line, which is after the street. So if your lot line was center line, we would measure it after the width of the right-of-way. Same as.
So it'd be from right-of-way line.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
And then the other question that I have is related to matching conditions. So if there were a structure that I'm assuming this would just trigger review, but if there were a structure that was built with materials that are no longer able to be used for whatever reason, maybe you can't meet Title 24 requirements with them or whatever it is. Let's say it's an adobe structure and you can't get it to calc seismically or whatever. In those circumstances, would those automatically come to our review, or would there be considerations and concessions made for a similar aesthetic that is not necessarily the same material?
The staff would look at similar materials. So I think the actual ordinance language says consistent with the primary residence. So the example that Ted shows you on this slide is a good example in that the architectural style is pretty obviously different. But zoning plan check staff takes a pretty black and white look at the style and the materials. So if they're mostly consistent with the style, then we would approve it.
And I can, just adding to that, it actually says it shall be compatible with fenestration, materials, colors, and details. So that's what they're looking for.
Does that answer that? It doesn't have to match exactly, just compatible with.
Did that answer your question,
Okay.
Leslie?
So you blurred the eye, you drive by the property. If they generally look the same, that might be the litmus test, something along those lines.
Yes, it doesn't have to be the identical shade of
Thank
blue,
you.
but it's similar, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have one additional question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, if an applicant decides that they don't agree with the staff's position, then they do have a right to come to the SFDB. Or if the staff says you need to go to SFDB because your deck is 15 feet or whatever, do they have to pay an additional fee to come to the SFDB because it's been directed by staff? How does that work?
Brenda, do you know the answer to this one? Because I don't.
If an applicant is directed to, well, our plan check correction would say, we don't believe you meet the ministerial criteria. You have the option of redesigning or submitting for single family design board. So if they choose that option, then they would submit a planning application in the same manner as any other planning application for SF. So the fee would be the same and the process would be the same.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Chair Member Colas, did you get your questions answered?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
All right, Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motish, any questions, please?
Yes. Well, question, what would happen if you had, and I think this is, or it's like, in the past, had somebody talking about it. If you have a house with a huge hole and it's got, let's say 2,000 square foot, a 2-story, and they want to build a new house, say 4,000 square foot, and make the existing house into an ADU. Is that possible?
It's hard to, it's hard to answer, such a specific hypothetical without really reviewing the project. But in general, no, you can't convert the whole house to an ADU. It's supposed to be either a portion of the house or an accessory building.
Is the reason that you can't convert a whole house just the fact that we assume before we even get into the project that what they're proposing for an ADU is not the whole house. But if you make the whole house like you build an ADU, which is detached, you have a whole entity, and a whole entity is the existing house. And if you build another house, before you make this an ADU, you build another house and then make the existing house an ADU, which has 2,000 square feet. Seems to me that illegal. Thank you.
Rosie, do you have an answer to that? It's kind of a complicated question, so I don't know
It is a little complicated, I think.
if. Yeah.
I just, I know there's a lot of scenarios that come up in people's minds, and I know state law, I think the intent of the state was that people are really building smaller units or converting accessory structures they already have. But of course, there's all kinds of situations where people will try to get the maximum they could get. I do know that we do require people to designate, like they have to have a primary unit, an accessory dwelling unit. You can't go, as far as I'm aware, just switching those around, or, you know, they may not be able to build that second home because they're in single family zoning. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe something like this could happen in a multi-unit zoning situation. I don't know if you want to add to that, Brenda, but I'm not sure if that situation could really happen that easily.
Yeah, I did a look at it.
If the person already wanted, say, in the past 10 years, have been planning to make a house, and they didn't want to, just last year, this ADU ordinance came into effect that says, oh, we don't have to tear down our existing house. We can make that into an ADU. It seems pretty simple to me that, yes, we're planning our big house, which is on a, let's say, a two acre lot, which is 4,000 square feet, and the existing house is 1,000 or less or more, depending on the size of the house, half the existing new house. Then we have an ADU, which is, lots of people build them and they become ADUs because the ordinance passed. You know, I'm picking out a special, but yes, it could happen. Yeah.
Board Member Motisha, if it helps, the primary residence has to come first. You have to have a primary residence in order to have an ADU. So if you know, if somebody did want to convert their existing residence into an ADU, that could pose challenges with this ordinance. They might have to demolish the existing residence and then, you know, construct a new ADU after constructing their new home, is kind of the upshot of that. But you wouldn't be able to demolish a residence and then add an ADU and just have an ADU on the lot for a period of time. You'd have to have the primary residence first.
Well, if nobody lived in it, it's just a vacant piece of vacant unity. And for 2 years, they build a new house. Unit is vacant, nothing there. I'll let it slide until we find until we have a project in front of us that matches that. Thank you.
I mean, I think theoretically that could happen, or it could be a barn or something converted to an ADU, and it could be quite large. I mean, that's just
Right.
the way state law is. We don't really have a lot of choice in that.
You brought up another subject, state barn, which is, I'll let it lie. Let it lie until we come up with that special scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Motisha. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions?
I have a question, and it may be a stupid one, which you all know the answers to, but I don't think I do. I was under the impression from prior meetings that the Single Family Design Board did not have any jurisdiction over ADUs. And when I went to the webinar about 3 weeks ago, I heard that maybe there were some discrepancies from that the ADU in the front yard would qualify for Single Family Design Board approval. Now I'm hearing today that you can approve, we have to approve every ADU that comes along. Is that correct?
Board Member Ziegler, no, you do not review every ADU that comes along, but there are special circumstances where you would be reviewing ADUs. And I think Ted covered those in his presentation. I think, for example, one of them could be the ADU in the front yard.
Yeah, that's one I understood from the webinar.
But there's many, many other ADUs that will never come before your board. They'll just be approved ministerially if they meet all the criteria in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so we have to know what those are then, right?
Well, if I could follow up, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Follows up on my question too, if there was any changes with the SFDB review. But my understanding is by the time a client comes before us with another home and the staff person says that we do not have jurisdiction over the ADU, that's because it's already fulfilled a certain criteria. Is that correct? You've already reviewed it. And if it hasn't satisfied those certain criteria, then we will be reviewing it. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah. Did that make sense, Jonathan?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's all interesting. You've answered my question. I've gone down the list. Thank you very much. Is anyone, any other follow-up questions or comments? Hearing none, I want to thank you very much for your time. I do want to compliment you because I have worked in other city jurisdictions where they're playing catch up with this whole ADU program. And so my hat's off for your efforts and work and diligence to try to make it seem user-friendly, which is a challenge.
Thank you for having us today.
And thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. So I guess we'll go back to our agenda. And our item number 2 is 524 West Valerio Street. This is a new item for concept review. I'll read it into the record. Proposal for an addition of a new 452 net square foot second level master suite and a new 60-foot second level deck to an existing single story residence. The project also includes a 42 net square foot stairway addition to the ground floor. The proposed total of 1,326 square feet of development on a 4,554 square foot lot is 57% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. No appealable action will be taken at this hearing. The project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Do we have a client representing this project, please?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Jared with Anacapa Architecture.
Hi, Jared. If you'd like to go through the project for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Board, Chair, thanks for having me. As mentioned, my name is Jared DeGansey with Anacapa Architecture. I'm excited to present to you our project on 524 West Valerio Street in Santa Barbara. Just wanted to note with today's hearing, my intent is hopefully this project will be allowed to reach project design approval and final approval the next time we're in front of the design board. Just want to set that up front. If you could go to page 2, please. And if you don't mind zooming in into the vicinity map on that bottom corner. Excellent. So we've outlined the existing lot in red, and so you'll see the existing home and detached garage is just south of the 101 highway and train tracks, and we've got a large tree in the front yard at the southeast corner of the site as well, and a few additional trees along the southwest property line. If you could go to slide 3, please. All right, on this slide we have photos of the existing residence. Currently on site, it's a single-story residence, about 830 square feet, and also an existing detached 2-car garage, which we'll see in the bottom right-hand corner. For this project, we're proposing to add a partial second story that includes a master bedroom, bathroom, and closet, all approximately 450 square feet, and also an exterior deck on the southwest side of the master bedroom opposite of the highway. And in addition to the second floor, we're adding about 42 square feet on the ground floor, which would be due to the new stair up to that upper level. If you could go to the page 4, please. right, on this slide, we have a few photos of the surrounding neighborhood. Looking at the overall neighborhood, there's a fair mix of single-story and two-story residences, all of them with pitched roofs. Second floors are typically set farther back from the street, with the first floor closer. And it appears predominant materials in the neighborhood are horizontal wood lap siding, wood shingles, and then asphalt shingle roofs, and all somewhat around the craftsman style architectural style. If you could go to page 5, please. All right, this is the existing site survey, and we have an aerial photo underlay. As noted, the lot's approximately 4,500 square feet. The property is on a fairly flat slope. The existing backyard is in that northwest corner where the existing garage and house act as somewhat of a buffer between the highway to the north and the train tracks. You could go ahead to the next page, please. I'm sorry, could you go back one? I missed one note I wanted to mention. On the existing site, we're not proposing any changes, but I did want to call out just the large tree that I noted previously in the front yard, and then we also have 2 additional trees along the southwest property line, and there's also a tree on the adjacent property as well, so all along that southwest property. A little bit more trees exist. And then, sorry, yes, next page, please now. All right, and on this page, we have the proposed site plan. So as noted, there's no landscaping changes, but you will see we are showing now the new updated roof for the second floor residence. That roof will match the existing slope of the house, which is a 5/12. Another item I wanted to note is we've located the small exterior deck on the left-hand side. And so the reason we've located this on the southwest side of the house is we're using the main, the new master residence as a buffer between the highway and train for air and sound quality reasons. And also additionally, just to the left of that deck on the adjacent property is a garage for the residence. And so hoping that it's facing a garage, we're not really negatively impacting privacy between neighbor and our client resident. Go to the next slide, please. On this sheet, I am showing the existing residence for the first floor plan on the left and the proposed floor plan on the right. And so we're maintaining mostly the entire ground floor with the exception of adding a stair at the top page on the right-hand plan to minimize just affecting the rest of the home and also creating a simple addition to the second floor. Next slide, please. And so this is the proposed partial second floor addition. It's approximately 450 square feet. The deck on the outside is roughly 70 square feet. We've pulled the second floor farther back from the street to minimize the bulk and mass of presence from this addition on the street side. And we've also sized the second floor on the bottom to basically meet the existing chimney, just to kind of tie in the massing cleanly. The majority of the operating windows we've located away from the freeway, and we've kept the operable windows facing the freeway to a minimum 2 smaller windows, as you can see on the right-hand side of the plan. Next slide, please. All right, on this we have the existing roof plan on the left and the proposed roof plan on the right. And so with the addition, we're replacing about 680 square feet of asphalt shingles. Those shingles will be the same to match the existing roof. And as noted, it'll be the same pitch as well, a 5 inches over 12 slope. And next slide, please. These are elevations of the existing residence. Currently, the existing house is clad in horizontal 6-inch lapwood siding and asphalt shingles on the roof. And the existing windows are a mix of double hung and sliding windows. And currently, as you saw in the photos previously, the house is primarily a white body with a blue and white trim. Next slide, please. Okay. All right, and finally on these revised elevations, as noted on the bottom left-hand, you'll see we've set the new second floor massing farther back to minimize the bulk on the street for the streets on the left-hand side for that bottom left elevation. And we have met the existing 5/12 roof slope for the existing addition and added windows facing most of the operable windows away from the freeway, and then 2 small operables on the bottom left elevation, which will be facing the freeway. And we're proposing to paint the entire house once renovated, body of gray, and then the window trims white. And just last note, all the ground floor windows will be remain as existing with the exception of the window on the bottom right, the north elevation. We're just shifting that due to the addition of the stair bump out. So that is it. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your comments.
All right, thank you. Do we have public comment, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates to me that you wish to speak. While we wait, Mary, did we receive any written comment for this item?
Thank you, Barbara and Chair Miller. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Okay, thank you. There are no hands raised. So Chair Miller, I will hand it back to you for questions.
All right, thank you very much. I'll just go down the list. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
I can't. Can you?
Yeah, you got a weak connection.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just go very quickly. Right now, there is a chain link fence on that house in the front yard. Are you doing a new fence or the chain link fence remaining?
Chain link fence will be remaining.
And are you proposing landscaping?
No new landscaping will be occurring. The only addition on the ground floor entirely is adding the stair bump out, but that would be not not affecting any landscape.
Okay, and then do you have a section through the house that shows the second floor deck?
Not at this packet. We will make sure to have that in the following packet.
So the only thing that shows that is we're on the screen right now with the, I can't read it, but the, would that be
the west elevation,
I guess? Is that the west elevation?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so that's an open railing that will be proud of the incline of the roof. Okay, thank you. And then because this is an older home, given where these are you going to be doing a new foundation for the whole house?
We're working with a structural engineer to do foundation upgrades where necessary in terms of, where we're supporting new walls up above. So not entire new foundation, it'll be selective reworking.
Okay, and is that a new fireplace? Will it be a gas fired or will it be a real fireplace?
We're going to keep everything from the firebox down for the existing brick chimney and fireplace we're going to keep, and then to minimize any sort of foundation effects, we're going to rebuild the above firebox with wood framing and then look at a brick veneer to match.
Oh, and not the renderings appear to be stucco. That's why I asked the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, no, the appearance will remain the same, but we will need to make the chimney taller just to maintain the fire distance requirements from the top of chimney to roof.
Okay, and then final question on your floor plan, second floor plan, the edge of that deck that comes out ends right at the setback line. That's what I'm reading.
Yes,
so that
exactly.
dash line is the setback line.
Correct. Yes, the current house on the ground floor is just beyond non-conforming existing, and then all new addition will be behind setbacks.
Okay, and so does the bottom floor of the existing house, is it inside the setback?
No, it is within the setback, approximately a foot.
Okay, so it looks like there's a 3-foot roof overhang then. eave overhang at that side.
Correct, yes, or about 2 feet, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, I have two questions. One is, I'm accustomed to seeing a section or an elevation through a proposed addition or home that that illustrates that the project is conforming with solar ordinance. Is there anything in the drawings, or are you exempt from that because of the orientation on this parcel?
No, we are not exempt, and so yeah, that's one of the comments we've been working with planning. We've added that to our latest drawings, and we
Okay.
do meet, yeah, because
Yeah, I don't anticipate you would have a problem just because of there
and
doesn't
this,
seem to be much proximity with the next door neighbor, but I just didn't see that documented.
yes, it will be in the next, definitely.
Okay. And then the second question I had is if we can go to the exterior elevations, and I believe it's the west elevation, it's the upper left elevation on that sheet. Do you know what the distance is from the left-hand jamb of that upper window that is above what I guess is the new door to the stairs maybe, and the edge of the structure? It looks
That's
quite
awesome.
thin. I'm wondering if you're going to have structural issues there.
Yes, we'll definitely make that efficiently. It will probably be probably being 3 2x stacked together. So yeah, in the next stage, we'll have a more formalized set of drawings with more precise elevations and windows, but that window location will be determined to make sure it works efficiently with the structure.
Okay, and then last question is, what type of handrail are you actually, or guardrail are you proposing? This looks almost like more like a metal tension open cable, which would be, anyhow, I'm asking what the materials are there.
Yeah, we've evolved a little bit in the design since this was submitted. We're now looking at something a little bit more simple. Before we were showing horizontal metal pieces of just half-inch stock, but now what we'll be looking at would be a simpler wood-framed railing with vertical wood stanchions every 4 inches, just to meet code requirements. But it would be wood painted to match the body of the house or
Okay.
window trim. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good project in general, and thanks for the answers.
Yeah, thank you.
Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, just one quick one. I looked at the street view, and I just want to confirm that on the side property line, there's existing fencing and hedging that's going to remain, it looks like, or
Yes.
in a vine.
Yeah, definitely. All fencing and hedging is going to remain intact and is not within any sort of updates. Yeah,
That's all
especially
for my question.
to maintain privacy between.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
No, I think all my questions. Not at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions?
I have a question. Looking at the houses you showed us in the hood, they all look like they were kind of light colored, and this one in your pictures looks like it's fairly dark. Is this the color of the house you're planning on building?
Yes, we're looking, the exact paint hasn't been figured out, but yeah, it's going to be something of a medium body gray. I think the one on the bottom left is darker. I would say it's somewhere in between the one on the top right, if that, yeah, so that one's darker than what we're expecting to do. I think the one on the top right, even though that's blue, if that was desaturated and a little bit, that looks more accurate, especially the second volume back in more sunlight. That looks to be a bit more close to what client's considering.
That's what the client wants, is a darker color. Is that correct?
Darker, yeah, right now there's currently a white, and so we're looking for a gray, a little bit more easy to maintain cleanly look.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. The window trim detailing and the door trim, are you matching existing, and do you have examples of what that is?
We will be matching existing. The best I have at this point is just the existing photos.
Okay.
But yeah, the intent will be to match the size of the trim, and we will be recoloring it. That blue trim you see now, we're proposing to change to white, but in terms of dimension.
What type of window is in the framing now? It looks like they're implanted.
So the large square windows are simulated divided light with, I believe, vinyl, and then the replaced sliding windows, I believe, are also vinyl.
And so is that what you're going to match that? Is that what your plan is?
Yes, we're going to have a mix of, we have some double hung windows to match the exact proportions. You can see there's a double hung, I guess best seen in the bottom left on the bottom center at the farther leftmost window and closest to the existing fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
Those double hungs are going to be what we're emulating in some locations.
Okay.
And then the other locations, we would be having smaller casement windows.
So I could safely assume that these windows are not the original windows when the house was built.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Do you know if they had pulled a permit for when they installed these new windows?
I am not aware. I do not know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those are my only questions. I'm going to bring it back to the board for comments. So going down the list, Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Turn my speaker back on. In general, I think this is an appropriate approach given the neighborhood. I do know that if you look at the neighborhood, there's, the latest deal is to have dark gray homes, so that's kind of where we are. With regards to the deck on the second floor, I think we would have to make the findings that is not in compliance with our guideline of being 15 feet from the property line. So if we were to be in agreement, I think that would have to be part of any approval motion in the future. I am a little concerned. I know there was description that the deck faces a garage, but given the fact that this is a tiny neighborhood, or where all the homes are very compact, if you go down the streets and even drive on the street that's by the railroad, everybody's jammed in there. So the deck is not a big deck, so it doesn't turn into a party deck of any sort. So I guess I'm not going to have a problem. I just want to see the section that really defines that, and also some understanding of where windows are on the adjacent property's home, just so we have a notion that we're not introducing a privacy issue. Then with regards to the vinyl windows, I was just looking at trying to find our guidelines. I don't think we allow vinyl windows. That's not a quality of material that's acceptable. So if the vinyl windows that are in the house now were put in without permits, that could be an issue. And certainly the new windows ought to be some sort of clad window at minimum. So that would be my comment. And then certainly when the project returns, the location of outside wall mounted or building mounted lighting is going to be important to see what it looks like and where they are located. And then I am a little concerned about the unimprovement on the street side. I don't know whether City Public Works is going to require improvement to the driveway, curb, sidewalk, etc. That little street is pretty dilapidated, and the fact the sidewalk runs out before it hits the corner towards the railroad. There is no sidewalk curb down that way. So I don't know what Public Works is going to say, and that may also affect the street trees that are existing there now. I couldn't see a lot because there were a lot of cars and trucks and a bunch of stuff in the front yard parked in front of there, so it was difficult to kind of understand what's going on. So I'd be interested to see how that's going to get cleaned up. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Colas, do you have any comments, please?
Just a couple comments. One comment would be that we would want to see a more traditional railing if the upper deck were to be retained. I am concerned about that one corner. The applicant may want to consider a smaller window at that location, just because it's a little bit out of context to have a window that close on a bungalow home of this nature to a corner. On the east elevation, for the windows that are above the bedroom, I would encourage the applicant to consider a in-swinging, well, a hopper or an awning window, which would be more traditional in a home of this nature, rather than I think it was shown as a casement on the floor plans. I think those are my only comments at this time. And
Thank you.
and then of course that we'd want to see a solar ordinance, I guess, diagram, for lack of a better way of explaining that.
Leslie, can you repeat what you were saying? Which windows you were, the hopper window, what were you referring to? I missed that.
There's 3 windows on the upper level of the east elevation that that hand is pointing at. I think on the floor plan those were shown, they were illustrated as casements, and I would encourage them to consider an awning or a hopper window there, which would be more traditional in that application on a bungalow home.
Got it. Thank you. Very good. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I would like to say that I think this project is really nice. I like the massing of it and the improvements. The one thing I do agree with Board Member Sweeney is the front. It would be nice. I know this isn't a requirement, but if you redid the chain link with something more compatible with the architecture and the neighbor, I think that that would look really nice. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Board Member Motish, any comments, please?
Yeah, my only comment is the 3 windows over on the second story that Board Member Colas just indicated. My experience in the past, windows over doors or over bedrooms just don't get it. And also those 3 windows kind of offset the second story and don't make it look like it's belongs to the first story. You have some double hung and some casement windows on the first story, which I assume are existing, and then you put 3 which could be awning windows. At least that's what they look like from the outside, and it doesn't look like that second story matches the first story. It looks like it was just added on and you put some windows there where you feel like where they felt like putting them. Maybe the windows could be each side of the bed of the bed in the middle of the room. So you'll have 2 casement windows on either side that match the windows down below. Like so the windows in the, I guess it would be the west elevation right next to it, to the right of that, are all double hung 3 by 5 foot windows. And then all of a sudden you put 3 awning windows that's my only comment.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have comments, please?
No, I really don't. I think it looks like a very good, enjoyable project that should work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my only comments is kind of a follow-up what the other board members said. I believe that if we're going to do a balcony on the second floor, that the railing should match the railing in the front of the house, the more traditional vertical, which I guess the client said they're going to do. And I also agree with Board Member Motisha about the window up on the second story and the front elevation. I tend to believe that Craftsman House, they tend to have a symmetry to it, and having that window way off to the side, and is more of a contemporary approach, which I think is not quite compatible with this style of home. So I'd like to see a study that the symmetry of the upstairs window in the front elevation was a little more balanced with the first floor. And I can't support the vinyl windows in a house of this style because I think that they should seriously look at a more traditional style of window construction that is more consistent with this style of home. I do know there's a pricing issue with that, but I just, you know, it does make a huge difference in terms of the experience and quality of the home when you really, you know, make the windows authentic. But those are my only comments.
Are we also? Can I say something?
Yes.
You, Board Member Miller, you referred to the three windows on the. Oh, okay. No, are you also referring to the three windows on the front elevation over in the bathroom?
Yes.
I was referring to the three windows on the north, I guess would be the north elevation over the master bed.
Yes. Well, I think those both should be studied. I agree with you on that as well. Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So with that being said, hearing more comment, would someone like to entertain a motion? It's only comments at this phase, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, it's Fred. Before you make a motion, I would just encourage the applicant to go back and study for privacy issues, our good neighbor guidelines document. I think it's section 36.3, upper story windows, positive and negatives. It shows how we deal with privacy issues. So if they go back and re-review that, that would probably be helpful. Thank you.
Helpful? Okay, thank you. So just to make note, and I really want to invite Leslie or Katie to make a motion. I know you're new on the board, but if one of you think you can give it a try, I want to welcome you guys or anybody to, you know, kind of expand your wings here.
Okay, I'll take a stab at it here. So bear with me as I stumble through this.
No problem. Thank you.
The board generally supports the project and feels that it would meet neighborhood compatibility guidelines. Our comments are to return to the board with the following studies or considerations. Consider the privacy issue related to the deck on the second floor, as well as the detailing for the guardrail related to that. Consider the appropriateness of the triple windows on the second floor, both on the south elevation as well as the east elevation. Possibly consider 2 double hung windows on the east elevation that would flank the bed rather than be over the top of it. The board would prefer to see wood windows or clad windows than the vinyl windows that we would not want to see those matched. The applicant shall consider the size and the relationship of the window above the door on the west elevation as it relates to the outside corner of the residence. And we would like to see a solar diagram indicating compliance with the solar ordinance, and would request that the client consider a change to the chain link fencing material at the front property line with something that is more consistent with the craftsman or bungalow nature of the home.
Not bad. May I have a second, please?
Before we get a second, could I?
Hold on. Okay, Board Member Motisha, hold on, you guys. Board Member Motisha first.
Okay, there was some mention about the land work, the streetscape in the front of the house with the sidewalk. Could we interject that the owner pair with the city to see if that is required to improve what is happening in the street, sidewalk and curbs?
Are you asking for clarification?
No, I'm asking if the owner can pair or work with the city and see if the city is requiring them to do something with the street. And I did notice what board member Sweeney noticed, that the street needs to be repaired. We're gonna put a new house on that street. We should upgrade the street.
So I have no objection to that comment. I don't know if my motion has to be seconded before we can make alterations to the motion. I don't know if it was seconded yet.
Yeah, well, I
Mr.
think
Chair, the appropriateness is to have it second, then for discussion, we can discuss additional items that may be acceptable both to the maker and to the seconder.
Okay,
So
hold
I will-
on.
So for the purposes of discussion, I will second the motion.
No, you can't. It's already been seconded by Joe. He already did that.
No, I did not second it.
Okay, I apologize. I thought he.
I tried to. I tried
Okay.
to.
See, the problem is the internet. It keeps blocking voices. So,
Right.
okay.
So we have a first and second, and what I would propose is Mr. Motisha's question can be simplified by just saying that we would urge the applicant to touch base with Public Works to see if there's going to be requirements for improvements to the parkway, curbs and gutters on the street side.
Thank you. You always say it more eloquently than I do, Fred.
Okay, great. Thank you. So on record, Fred made the second. Is that correct? Just so we're all on the same page. Where's our city staff person?
Mary's,
Oh, they're all there now. Where's Ted?
Okay.
Yes, I have that it was Colas and seconded by Sweeney.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so any more comment?
yes, Mr. Chair, just to make sure that the maker of the motion is clear, he did indicate that the project appears to be compatible with the neighborhood. But I believe what the applicant was requesting at the beginning of his presentation was whether or not we would be amenable to project design approval at its next appearance. So either we say that is the case, or we will wait until we see how they respond to our comments. In other words, you don't want to give indication to an applicant that we're ready to give project design approval if we're not. But if we are, then you may want to make that part of your motion clear.
Thank you for the
And-
direction, Mr. Sweeney. See what happens when you try?
Well, and let me
I would
just-
prefer that the project return to the board, that it be continued to the full board, and that we review it before giving those comments.
And then your adjustment to your motion needs to be agreed to by the seconder.
Which is you.
me, Which is me.
Yes, you.
Okay. And so I agree. I'm sorry. Kept looking at Joe thinking. No, I agree to that wording. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Miller. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. Very good try. First time. Very good.
Congratulations. Yes. All right, moving on to item number 3, 222 Gibraltar Road. It's a continued item. Project design approval is requested. It's a proposal to construct a new 6,957 square foot, 3-level, single unit residence on a vacant lot. Proposal includes 1,823 square feet at the basement level, 1,243 square foot at the ground level, and 890 square feet at the second level. The project also includes 1,071 cubic yards of grading, a new pool, a new decking, and green roofs. The proposed total of 6,957 square feet of development, of which 50% of the basement is excluded from the calculation, on a 4-acre lot located in the Hillside Design District is 90% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio FAR. Project design approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings, grading findings, and hillside design and slope lot findings. The project was last reviewed on April 27, 2020. Now, do we have minutes that Fred Sweeney could speak into the record? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I will read our actions from the April 27th meeting, which
Thank you.
continued indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. 1, the approach to the project is favorable to the neighborhood. 2, the neighborhood is bound by Gibraltar Road to the west, Mountain Drive to the east, El Cielito Road to the south, and the county line to the north side. 3, the board is in a position that they will support project design and final approval at the next meeting if the applicant can resolve the issues of roof covering and grading. 4, return with the requirements for final approval, including complete landscape plan, irrigation plan, and a color board. Action was taken on a motion by Sweeney, second by Phil. 7-0, motion carried.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. April, would you like to present your project and kind of review the minutes with us?
Yes, of course. Board Chair, thank you so much for your time today. We're really excited to show you some updates here.
Great.
I'm going to talk a bit quickly first. We're here for project design approval with a request for consent to final. I'd like to note that we're not here for final, despite due to an issue with the Creeks Department and our consultant team requesting that no infiltration testing take place on unretained steep hillsides. Jim Rumley did not accept those resolutions. So because we don't have the required infiltration testing, we are not here for final, though our documentation is at a level to be reviewed for final. I'd also like to note page 2 that due to COVID, the project has been dramatically scaled back from our original scope, and I think it's all to the benefit of the neighborhood and the project. At our concept hearing, we just discussed the total square footages. Right now, we are at the board today for a single story, 4,023 gross square foot residence and a 748 gross square foot garage and storage for trash and PV devices. Previously, there was 1,000 cubic yards of export. We're now proposing 750 cubic yards of import, which is required to develop the driveway to the appropriate fire standards to make it to the site. Page 3 of the presentation, please. The site so everyone remembers, is a flat pad. This house burnt down in the Tea Fire. It was a multi-level pad. It has now been leveled flat. Page 4 shows the neighborhood context, driveway gates, stucco building masses, single story volumes, single and a half story volumes. Very infrequently do you get a 2-story volume around here. Page 5. Our material palette has softened from the board form concrete. We are now doing a warm white smooth troweled stucco with board formed concrete site walls, California gold gravel ballast roof. We are nearing litigation for another green roof in the city of Santa Barbara in a high fire district. We are not pursuing that same thing here. Just another obstructionist movement by the city of Santa Barbara and the fire marshal for what is effectively allowed in the rest of California in the residential zones. There's a basalt paver auto court with a concrete driveway, terrazzo exterior patios with a consistent interior floor finish, aluminum doors and windows in an anodized bronze, and then a hot rolled steel front door and garage door. Around site will be typical Santa Barbara sandstone in an organic arrangement. Page 7 is the planning resolution that came out in 1991 for this that we were required to have. That's pages 6 and 7. Pages 8 through 14 are grading, utilities, and stormwater management. So for the grading study, you can see on that plan right there, the new driveway coming down is requiring to meet the access standards for slope, is going to require some fill along that hillside. It's a good moment to take a look at the site plan here, where the existing apron for the driveway, the existing entry for the previous home that burnt down remains off of the private drive. And then there's an S-curve driveway coming down to an auto court at the flat pad down there. Page 15 is our site survey. And then page 16 is our proposed architectural site plan. So you can see on this site plan, dark black dashed line is our building envelope. Light red dashed line is the extent of the previous home that was constructed there. We had a really unique building envelope here that was mandated by an oak that was in that sort of half moon, half circle area just below annotation 1A201. Coming down from the private driveway, again, the S-curve, we have a garage that's Project West, slightly embedded into the hillside, not by much. And we have 2 uncovered parking spots, 2 covered parking spots in the garage. And then the building itself, the residence, is on the southern portion of the pad and has a rotation to it that doesn't quite make sense at first sign or first eye, but is required for to make the driveway work within the building envelope constraints, auto court driveway, and the main house, while keeping it as far away from the eastern hillside as possible. Last note is we are proposing to renaturalize the hillside south of the house, where you see a small dipping pool. There's a graded driveway access down there that we are planning to renaturalize, reslope, and that brings the slope of the hillside closer to the driveway so that a passerby on the private drive cannot see the full height of the structure. Page 18 is the garage plan and driveway. There we go, 2 cars, trash enclosure fully screened from the street, and then a storage area for all of our PV inverters and Tesla Powerwall. Immediately east of the exterior line is our mechanical system, and then 2 cars, 2-car garage, 2 parking spots, page east. Page 19 is our floor plan. The updated floor plan is a single-story floor plan, center hallway condition. North of the center hallway, page north of the center hallway, we have the master suite. Page south of the hallway, we have 2 guest suites with a shared Jack and Jill bathroom. And at the end of the hallway, we end in an open living, kitchen, dining arrangement with 1 full bath south of the kitchen and a pantry. The pool has been dramatically reduced to effectively just a dipping pool off of the south end. It's about 8 feet wide by 13 feet long in the north-south direction. Finished materials are terrazzo floors, indoor and out, plaster ceilings, kind of a really warm sandy plaster ceiling, both interior to exterior. All glazing has been pulled back from the edges of the structure to make sure that there's no lantern effect at night. Glazing on the east side of the home, the west side of the home, which faces Gibraltar, has been reduced so that there's really 1 operable door in each of the guest rooms. It's about 4.5 feet wide, and then 1 little window in the bathroom, pantry, and the powder room, even though the powder room has a full bath. So light pollution to the east or the west and the north have been taken pretty seriously. There's no windows on the north facade, so that the north neighbor does not have any lights at the edge of their property if they go to their sort of edge. Page 20 is the RCP. We are proposing a 3-inch 2700 Kelvin flush trimless LED. And you'll see on the floor plan here that there's only 2 exterior lights at the south patio. This will not be an overly lit project. We are trying to be as minimal with our lighting as absolutely possible. Lighting in the interior is really just 1 fixture over the dining table, 3 over the island, and then there's sort of there's 4 around the living room with 1 accented on the TV wall. We've taken a lot of sort of conscious decision-making with all of this lighting to make sure that it's dim and appropriate for the neighborhood. Page 21 is the roof plan. We are proposing a California Gold gravel ballasted roof. And that is because we cannot have a green roof in a high fired area that the city of Santa Barbara adopted that code. I'm sure everyone remembers Miramonte. We're still in a battle about that. So the client for this project does not want to fight that battle. So we are doing a Class A PVC membrane 80 mil. That's gray with the gravel ballast. You'll see in green the skylights that are here. The skylights are for some small accessory spaces. Two on the north are to the laundry room and the master closet, where there are no windows to the exterior. The 4 rectangles are tiny little light wells in door alcoves. And then the 1 page south is over the shower in the main or in the guest bathroom. 22 is exterior elevations. So the house is really low. It's about 13 feet 6 inches, well below the height limit of 25. And you can see it's just a minimal exterior massing. We have about a 2-foot thick fascia wooden truss system. The fascia is smooth. And then there's a horizontal break line, a basically white Schluter strip, where then we have the textured stucco beneath it. Doors and windows are called out. They are operable and sliders, most of them pocketing. And it's an OTIMA system, which is a thin line aluminum system, again, recessed in from any building face and edge to make sure that the glow is minimized. 23 is the garage elevations, showing the height of the garage to match the main house. And then pages 24, 25, and 26 are our sections. Page 27 is our door and window schedule. 28 is our wall assemblies. And then page 29 is our exterior detailing. So you can see we have a parapet cap, gravel ballast roof. We have a structural rim, door and window system with integral tracks, stucco siding, and slabs. Page 30 is landscape. There's something that I'd like to bring up prior to the landscape architect speaking on behalf of this project. There are 2 common olives on the plan that we're proposing to be removed. The removal of those should be warranted by SFDB, as they are not on the originally approved landscape plan for the subdivision and thus are planted without permit. We are proposing to remove those 2 and replace them with 3 coastal live oaks, which everyone in Santa Barbara knows is the tree. So we think that that's a benefit to the project. Is Aaron on from Rana? I guess.
Yes, I will let him in as a panelist. Aaron, I've let you in as a panelist, so you're free to speak. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, good afternoon, board members. My name is Aaron Ackerman. I'm with Rana, providing the landscape design for this project. So this page is primarily showing the defensible space for the property. We are located within the city's extreme foothill zone, and so we wanted to be sure that all the vegetation that we're proposing is within the city's standards. Everything within zone 1 will be, zone 1 and 2 is new vegetation, and then anything outside of that green space will not be introduced with any new vegetation or landscaping. Next page. So as Jeff said, the only 2 trees that we're proposing to be removed are 2 existing olive trees that I believe were probably introduced during the previous structure. Next slide, please. So in terms of the landscape materials, I think Jeff kind of went over most of it. The driveway is going to be primarily a concrete or asphalt. We get into the auto court, which we're proposing to be a permeable basalt stone. And then the rest of the materials are very, very much permeable. We have a new guest patio on the west side of the primary residence that's going to be a flagstone, probably mixed with some sort of crushed basalt or crushed stone. And then there's also a second patio on the east side of the structure that's proposed to be, again, a crushed aggregate or crushed stone. Next slide, please. This is just primarily showing the irrigation zones. What we're proposing is that over 55% of the irrigation is going to be done through a drip system. The only places that we're going to see an overhead spray are some of the larger areas where we have a seeded vegetation. Those are the larger spaces kind of south of the main property, or the main structure, sorry.
Is that due to COVID delays, or is that just?
We're also, within the irrigation, we're also providing, the MAWA calculations and making sure that our total water use is within the standards for California.
Okay.
This sheet is just showing our valve layout and the various irrigation systems throughout the property for the landscape.
In Vietnam, they.
In terms of the planting, this plant schedule shows the common name and botanical name for all the plants that we're proposing, the container size, the water use expectations, the quantity, and then also the sort of the defensible space vegetation zone that the plant would be proposed for within the landscape itself. And that also, if this plant has been listed within the city's desirable plants for high fire zones. Next slide, please. So in general, I think our approach for the landscape is really introducing a new various seeded mix of native plants, primarily native grasses and native wildflower perennials, and have those sort of structured and punctuated with some container plants and the more sort of formal areas around the structure itself. Next slide, please.
Can we do a request for 2.5 more minutes of time for Aaron to complete his presentation?
Took the words out of my mouth. Yes, please.
These next two slides are irrigation system details.
Makes it easy, huh? They're all have basically the same name.
And this last slide is our landscape lighting plan. So the design is primarily to provide, fixtured, low directional lighting for pathways where, different outdoor spaces are going to be used during the evening. We are sure that the lighting proposed for the residents is to code according to the City of Santa Barbara's night sky ordinance. Everything within the landscape is likely to be at a 12-volt power, so certainly nothing with too high voltage. And all the fixtures will be given shielding and provide a lens specification to minimize glare.
It's not that. I was just confused.
These last two sheets are just looking at sections through the property to give an understanding of the grading and how that relates to the proposed and existing vegetation and also the proposed structures.
I think it's really important on this slide on number 1, on the left-hand side, you see a human scaled figure. The other two residences in this development have 1 and 1.5 story masses right next to the road. Here, what you can see is the auto court is down at 964. The road is above 973. So any occupant walking will be able to see over the height of the house. And it would be even higher if they're in a car. Granted, this is a private road. There's only one full-time resident on this road. We're just showing the sensitivity to that. The lower elevation section, I think it's the next page, shows the other way. Yes, so the bottom section, you can see how, I'm sure that Aaron was gonna say this, but bringing out that hillside offers a shielding of the structure from the lowest point of the road to the right of that drawing.
That's correct. And I think in our case, we're a bit limited or constrained in terms of the amount of vegetation we can use for screening. And so I think in our case, this proposal for the regrading helps us out in that regard.
It's also where the revised subterranean water tanks for the stormwater retention are going to be located. So it works out with civil that way.
All right, thank you. Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
That's it. Thank you so much for the extra time, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. Thank you. Bring it back. Do we have any public comment, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which will indicate to me that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written comment for this item?
Thank you, Chair Miller and Barbara. We did not receive any written correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. There are no hands raised. So Chair Miller, I'll hand it back to you for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll go down the list. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, just a clarification question. I'm not sure we're able to do this, but are we able to see what the site plan looked like the last time next to what you're now proposing?
It's a technical challenge.
Yeah, I don't know if we're able to do that or not, but.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's good to be interesting to see it.
Well, because the applicants asked for project design approval and we were ready to give it last time. I just want to see where it was versus where it is now.
So on this, you can see the upper driveway is the upper level. Whoops.
Timmy's the person in charge. He's.
Bear with us one moment, please. We do have the old plans for you to review.
While they're looking, do you have another question maybe, Fred?
So in this new plan, the basement went away, correct? There's no basement.
That is correct. There's no basement. There's no second story volume, single story only.
And then you said you're importing 750 cubic yards, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's 60 or 70 truckloads, given how I calculate that. So my question is to staff, perhaps Ms. Burkhart, are we able to discuss recommendations to the building department? I know we don't have exact purview about being able to control when those truck trips happen. Is that a function of the building department's criteria for issuing a permit, and also construction parking? But now that let me come back to that. Now we're looking at the plan. So the one on the right is what you're now proposing, and the one on the left is what you were proposing. So the front entry gate was where on the old one?
The old plan had two driveways. The upper driveway you can see is page north. Yep, that is correct, with an auto court, and that was where guests would park. The lower driveway, page south off of yep, down there, was the entrance to a subterranean garage that was off of the lower entry. So we are now proposing to not touch that hillside in a negative way, regrade it so that we naturalize that flat pad that's currently there right now that was previously used for guest parking. That south elevation of the main home, though rotated in the proposed plan, is farther north on the page than the face of the garage and roof of the previously proposed garage, if that
Okay.
makes any sense.
That makes sense. And then you rotated the main footprint of this new proposal versus the old proposal. And then are we able to, Mr. Bolton, look at one of the elevations, the old and new proposal? Perhaps the south elevation, might just see what the old one looked like and what the new one looks like.
That would be an acceptable page.
Okay, so there's the one with 2 stories, and the new one. Okay, so we have the floor-to-ceiling glass on the old one, and we have floor-to-ceiling glass on the new one. I looked at it correctly.
And then
Yeah.
it's item number 3. Yep, the middle row right there. Yep.
Okay. All right, so that's the major difference. Okay, and then let me get back to Ms. Burkhart on the issue of truck trips and construction parking on these narrow roads, and this is a private road, et cetera, up in this area. That always seems to be a problem in that everyone that works on the job has to have their own pickup truck. And also then just a lot of trucks running up and down that road. Will the building department give some criteria where the construction parking happens and when the truck trips can occur? Do we know?
Board Member Sweeney and Chair Miller, standard construction conditions will apply, and building and safety can enforce certain things like construction hours. Truck trips and parking are not within the purview of the SFDB, but the standard conditions will apply to this project.
Okay, I would make a request that we definitively ask the building department to address that, because that seems to be a big challenge up in this area of our city when we do construction projects of this magnitude. And then my last question is, did you have, I thought I saw on the photographs of materials, a color of the stone ballast for the roof. And then you said it was golden color, but I was confused. Can you clarify, please?
Oh, the image is correct. I may have misspoken for California gold rather than granite.
So it's more of a gray color.
It's more of a gray color on that roof. Yes.
Okay. It wasn't clear to me. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Colas, do you have any questions, please? Hello? Can you hear me? I think there's some kind of technical issue. I'll ask Board Member Klein, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I was wondering if you could clarify where you're managing the stormwater. I know you mentioned it. I just was wondering if you could show me on the plan.
Yes. So the original intent, which is why we're not able to pursue final approval today, was we were going to have an infiltration basin page north of here. There's a note that says existing oak to remain, and there's a rectangle over there on a flat pad by contour 948. We are unable to pursue that at this time. So coming back to the plan where you see the existing road turning from a southerly direction to an easterly direction, right between two sort of trees, there's a sloping hillside right there. If you zoom in below Royal Palm to Remain, we're going to be doing subterranean tanks there. in the hillside that's then going to be refilled to naturalize that slope.
Great. Thank you. And then also, you said the basalt was permeable. I assume it has a 4-inch gap in the detail. How is the basalt permeable? I was just curious.
I don't think
Yeah,
it's about. Oh, sorry, Aaron.
The stone itself, right, the way it'd be constructed is the permeability would happen between the stones.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like the
Right.
18-inch base, and then I don't think it's a 4-inch gap. I think we can get it narrower so long as we have the 18 inches of gravel beneath the actual stone paver.
Right.
Great. And I was curious about the type of flagstone as well, or stone type.
I think we would likely go with, you know, some sort of granite or a sandstone quarried locally, ideally. We haven't really figured out the details on the exact material for that yet, but that's kind of the
Thank
direction
you.
that we're headed.
And then also the lighting, maybe we could just go to that plan. There was a light in the driveway. That might just be a mistake, but I was just curious. So you just have really minimal path lighting, it looks like.
Correct. So these lights are fixtures that would have sort of a center post, a vertical post that's about 2 feet high, with a light affixed to the top of it that would face down. It does look like there's an error on our drawing there. I think that lighting fixture should be relocated.
But at the start of the driveway. We have one at the
Great.
start of the driveway and then at the final sort of curve of the driveway.
Got it. Those are all my questions.
All right, thank you. I see Kalaska back on. Can we hear you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Here.
great,
Okay.
very good. Do you have any questions?
I'm a little bit behind the curve here, so excuse me because I did have to drop off due to connection problems. I had 2 questions. One is this hooked up to city water?
That is correct. This is a city water that the main for the public line is actually off of East Mountain. Then there's a big backflow valve. And then there are 5 parcels that this fits through a private water main that goes from East Mountain up this private drive to Gibraltar. So it services the one house north of this, our property to the west, southern property. And then I think one to the east.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, just as a point of information for you, on sheet G001 under the scope notes, there's a comment on the drawings about how this relates to tenant improvements already existing on the parcel, and I thought that was a bit of an odd note. Just a heads up. Perhaps my definition of a tenant improvement is different than yours. The only other question I had is about shading, is about the basalt. Have you done a shading study at all for the pavers, the basalt pavers that you're proposing on the north side of the project? It gets very warm, as you probably know, up on Gibraltar, and it's a very dark material. And so I'm wondering if you have done any shading studies of that area to see how exposed that's going to be in terms of heat gains.
We have not done any shading studies on the auto court, but in our thinking through the temperature of that, it felt like a very similar surface to any kind of asphaltic base that would be placed there. So other than, a concrete, just much lighter, going to just asphalt, we didn't think it was a good priority for the project. And we thought that this is a pretty equal trade in terms of its environment to asphalt.
Okay, those were the only questions that I had, Chair Miller.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, any questions?
Yeah, can we look at the floor plan again? I have a question on the, those windows on the great, I'll call it the great room. I don't know what you've called it. North, I guess it would be northwest. Let me see. North, yes. I'm looking basically 12 o'clock north. Is that correct?
On the page, you are looking page north, 12 o'clock. As a compass, you're just south of east.
The south. Oh, that's
just
a new. I never.
South of east.
Okay.
All
All
right,
those
that clears it.
south of east. Oh. Well, that
So you're
really
looking
threw,
east.
that threw me that threw me for a loop right there. I'm not too sure where. If I'm standing in the great room, and I'm looking at the swimming pool.
Ooh, that's due south, but just slightly west of south.
Okay. So all these windows are looking east, southeast, basically.
You are correct. Ocean.
And the driveway, the garage, the garage is up here on the upper left corner of this print.
That is correct.
Okay, no, that answers my question because I wasn't sure. And all those windows, do they all fold out so they're all open, or do they fold into each other?
They do not stack. They do slide. They are not stacking, or sorry, they're not pocketing. They don't, disappear into walls. And I know that you can't see my mouse right now, but in the kitchen, the one immediately to the right of the kitchen slides down, and then the one sort of right north of the kitchen at dining, and then the one above it, they slide page north. So they stack over there, and then the 3 page north stack towards the wall to the west.
Gotcha. Okay, that's looks like you're. Other than that, I have other questions. Other than I have a comment, but that'll come in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
I guess so. Tell me, I don't know if I heard the reason you were taking out the 2 olive trees. Can you explain that?
Do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Jeff.
The olive trees that are there are not part of the approved landscape plan from the original subdivision, and they're not particularly native to the foothills of Santa Barbara up there on the property. So in trying to bring this property back to something that feels like a very naturalized California landscape, we are proposing to remove those 2 olives and replace them with coastal live oaks, which we believe is a benefit for the project and
I think you explained
subdivision.
replace them with. I didn't know why you wanted. Okay, thank you. The other question is, are you still talking about a 90% FAR, or is that applied to this?
So this parcel doesn't have an FAR requirement per se because it's over 15,000 square feet. But if you take the 4,000 gross that the project currently is, and versus the 7,000 that it previously was, that's an almost 50% reduction in the square footage accounted for as FAR. So there's been a significant reduction in FAR on the project. I don't know the exact number right now.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The only question I have is the roofing structure. If in some time, perhaps in the future, when things perhaps change, can they change it into a green roof?
It is engineered to accommodate that.
Okay.
Believe me, it is. You are on my side. It is engineered to accommodate that. So yes, we will see how successful our battle with a code amendment goes on Miramonte. But yep.
Okay, great. Good. All right. Bringing it back to the board for comments. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Chair Miller, can I interrupt for a moment?
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure, because we have a couple new board members, I want to confirm whether or not the recording of the meeting from April 27th, 2020, and the plans were reviewed by any board members that were not in attendance at that meeting before they comment on this item.
I did not review them, but I am planning to abstain on this given where it's at in the design approval process, Ms. Burkhart.
Okay, thank you. And Member Klein?
I did review them, and there wasn't a landscape plan at the time either, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Then, Fred, do you have any comments, please?
I think the only concern I have is whether or not we're able to give it project design approval today, given the fact that it's basically a fairly radical change from what we had reviewed last time, and we're in agreement that we would give it project design approval. That's possible today. And I thought maybe I missed it. I was maybe out of the room for a second. The new FAR is what? Did we have a number for that? It was 90%. It's dropped, correct? Do we have a new number? Is the applicant able to share that?
I do
No, we
not have
don't.
a new number right now off the top of my head because this number
Okay.
wasn't applicable to the project in general since the site was over 15,000 square feet in this district.
No, you don't understand. We do have purview over any FAR, and that needs to be provided irregardless of the 15,000 square feet. That's a different criteria. This board does look at FARs irregardless of that criteria. So that's a number I certainly would want to have so that the motion for project design approval could show that we did look at it and found it acceptable. But without that number, we can't really say one way or the other. So that's my hesitancy to support project design approval at this point. But I'd like to hear what my fellow board members think. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. April, yes, you can speak.
I do just want to, I understand the textbook, request to have a specific number. That being said, upon coming to concept with a project of almost double the size, 3 levels, and significant grading, we feel that this is a total improvement and a lower impact project to this site. And I do promise you solemnly, I'll come back with an FAR for final.
Mr. April, we're not questioning your intent. The issue is if this project for any reason gets appealed by someone other than you or your owner, that becomes part of the documentation of the appeal. That's why that number is important, because it would indicate to us, if we give you a project design approval, we've also then addressed that the FAR, as you're proposing, is acceptable. It's fairly straightforward. It's just on the public side of the world, if someone in the public appeals this project, this lands up in front of the city council, and we don't have a lot of ability to provide all the information necessary on that appeal. So that's why that number is important. Thank you.
Thank you. And if this is an issue in making a motion, I would just suggest that it just included in the motion that an accurate FAR is required. Anyway, moving on to, let's see, Board Member Motish, I believe. Is it your turn to comment?
Yes, and I forgot what I was going to say. I'm fine, no comments. But I think
Okay. Sorry, what?
No, go ahead. I'm finished. Thank you. No comments.
All right. All right. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
I don't think I do. It looks like a good project. And I like the fact they reduced the FAR, but I don't know what that's going to be.
All right, thank you. So I believe, Board Member Klein, did you make comments? I'm sorry.
No, yes, I have some comments regarding the landscape plan. I want to commend it. It is well done and very far along as far as the plant palette and everything. It's compatible, very native, fire-wise. The new oaks, I support in favor of that, replacing the olives. Irrigation also is water-wise. And the grading and retaining walls are done really well to fit into the slope. And yes, those are all my comments.
Thank you. So I believe Board Member Colossus has to abstain because she has not reviewed the minutes. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you. So my only comment is I find it strange that the city of Santa Barbara doesn't allow a green roof and everyone else does. So I look forward to whatever that resolution is in clarity. I highly recommend that if it does become possible that a green roof is allowed on this house, that actually is a total complement to this approach of design. That's like almost the focal point of this house is to have that green roof. So that would be my only comment. With that being said, would someone please entertain a motion? Let's see. Now, design approval is requested.
Mr. Chair, I would be happy to help someone else make the motion.
Hey, so
this is, we're trying to help everybody do this. Maybe I can get Ms. Klein to make the motion and I'll help her walk it through it.
Sure, I will. I don't know if you're gonna like it, but I'll try.
All right, why don't you go ahead and then we'll make sure you've covered the points. That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. So I would say the board generally supports the project, meeting the compatibility guidelines, and would be in support of PDA, project design approval. The landscape and plant palette fits well with the site and fire-wise and native. The architecture also, height is compatible and fits within the slope and the guidelines of SFDB. The grading findings are compatible with the native landscape. There's no significant grading. Anything else I need to comment on?
If you look at the screen, oops, Mr. Bolton, if you could go back for a second. I assume it's Tim is helping us on this. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Katie, what you would do is number 2, item 2, no substantial. You can say there's no substantial South Oakwood habitat being disturbed. That you will have reviewed the proposal to remove the 2 existing olives, and you find that acceptable. So that would be part of your motion. Okay.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Bolton, if we can go to the next slide. So I think you covered that. You probably covered the building scale. But generally what I think you would have said is that the general scale in terms of a single-story structure is appropriate to its position on both the landscape or the topography being proposed. And you could, you could be really technical and say it's demonstrated in their sections on page such and such, but you don't have to get that technical. And then the only, I think your motion, and I'll second your motion, the only other corrected motion to be really clear is that you are in fact saying we are going to give this project design approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it should be clear, not that you're thinking about it, we are doing it, okay? So that's your motion.
Yes.
That's perfectly fine. You either get everybody to agree or everybody disagrees. And then the only
Right.
other thing that I would suggest is the seconder of the motion is that the applicant be required to provide a updated FAR number to be included for final approval. And then the final item would be final approval. And I assume because of the way you're looking at this, final approval can occur at consent calendar. So is that acceptable wording to you?
Yes. Can I just
Okay. Then that,
say that?
So let-
is
let-
acceptable?
Mary, are we clear on the motion, having helped Ms. Klein do it?
Yes.
So-
Is that clear?
Board Member Sweeney and Chair Miller, we also need to go through the neighborhood preservation findings.
Oh, okay. So Katie, all you need to do is, all you need to really do at this point is just read those 3 points.
Okay, the project is consistent in appearance with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood, is compatible with the neighborhood in its size, bulk, and scale, and is appropriate to the site and neighborhood. As quality architecture and materials, the proposed buildings and structures are designed with quality architectural details. The proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline and the hillside.
And I think you've already kind of covered the trees in the earlier part of the
Oh,
motion.
and yeah, and the trees are acceptable as far as the removals with the replacement with oaks. The health, safety, and welfare, I have those findings. Good neighborhood guidelines, the project generally complies with this. Public views are maintained very well with the topography of the site.
Great, thank you. So Mary, could you please review the motion so we, So it's-
Chair Miller, I have one more interruption.
sure, why not?
We would also like for the motion to indicate that the project design approval is based on the scope as reviewed and presented today, as our project description on screen is different. If you could include that in your motion also, please.
That's
Sure.
agreeable to the second.
Thank you.
So Katie, all you've got to say is that's agreeable.
That is agreeable
There you go.
as shown today.
Thank you. Mary, could you please read the motion to us?
Yes, so the motion is for project design approval with the following comments. Number one, the board is in general support of the project. Number two, the landscape and plant palette fits well with the site. Number three, the height of the project is compatible and fits in with the slope. The general scale in terms of a single-story structure is appropriate to its position on the topography being proposed. Then number four were the grading findings. Number five, hillside design and slope lot findings. Number six, the applicant shall provide an updated FAR for final approval. The preliminary FAR is 49%. And number eight, the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria were made.
I had
Great.
a question. So I just wanted to clarify also that they could come back for consent as well for final.
Okay.
And did the seconder agree with that?
Yes.
May I have a roll call, please?
Yes. So we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Koloss,
Abstains.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha, and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great job, Katie. Good job.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks. First timer.
Oh, and you have to, there's an appeal process for this project.
Okay. Is that all you say? Is there's an appeal process?
Yeah, there's a 10-day appeal for this project. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, that's your job.
Oh, that's your job. Okay, I don't have to do that if I make
No,
the motion.
maker of the motion doesn't have, no, the chair needs to read the appeal.
Well, I said that there is a 10-day appeal process, and that's okay. Thanks, Fred. All right, let's go to item number 4, 135 Palisades Drive. Project design approval is requested. I'll read into the minutes. A proposal to demolish an existing 586 square foot residence with an attached 296 square foot garage and construct a new 2,077 square foot two-story single-family residence with attached 400 square foot two-car garage and an attached 591 square foot accessory dwelling unit, ADU under separate permit. The proposed 2,477 square feet of development on a 7,209 square foot lot of the maximum allowable floor to lot rate area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Project was last reviewed September 14th, 2020. Do we have minutes to share to the board, please? Mr.
Thank
Sweeney.
you. Mr. Chair, there was a motion to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Item 1, in general, the board is in favor of the approach to the style of architecture, recognizing there are similar homes in the neighborhood. Dissenting board members would indicate that a cottage style would be more amenable to the neighborhood. 2, the general size and FAR is acceptable. The 84% FAR does not include the ADU. 3, reconsider the roof deck. A majority of the board is not in favor of the deck and would like to see a smaller deck. 4, the board would like further study of the clear story elements over the living area so that they match the proportions 2/3 of the window openings of the second floor. 5, the second floor deck shall be 15 feet from the property lines as presented in the SFDB guidelines. 6, applicant shall study the overhangs and eyebrows over the windows to ensure heat or direct sunlight is not a problem in areas where larger windows are used. 7, the board would like further definition of landscape plan both in front and rear yards. It should be noted that if the board does review such plans and recognizes in many cases that the homeowner may not have sufficient funds, but emphasizes the need to do landscaping on the street side part of the house. 8, show the proposed color scheme of the house. 9, show any exterior lighting and landscaping and on surfaces or under parapets on the house. The action was taken on a motion by Sweeney, seconded by Ziegler. The motion carried on a 6-1, Miller opposed. Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Chair.
thank you very much. So again, I have a question to staff. Does Board Member Klein and Colas need to review the minutes of this to make any comments?
Yes, they would have needed to review the video from the last meeting.
So can I confirm? So have you guys reviewed the minutes for this, please?
Yes, I reviewed the minutes, but I did not watch the video for this one. So I don't know if that is allowed.
Did you review the plans? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And Board Member Colas?
I did not. I saw that this was the 3rd or 4th visit to the board, and so I assumed I would be abstaining on this.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. So we do need you to have watched the video and reviewed the old plans and the old minutes in order to comment on this and vote on this item.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I will
They can't-
abstain.
All right, but they can't ask questions, is that correct?
So, Madam Chair, I have a question. That relieves, does that leave 3 of us, 4 of us? So, 4. So that is still a quorum, correct?
Yes, there's still a quorum.
Yes.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay,
And
thank you. Yeah.
Applicant for this project is here. Ms. Sherry, I'm unable to admit you as a panelist for some reason, but I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I apologize for not having video capability right now, and I'm on my cell phone. but thank you for reading the minutes. And what I thought I would do is just run through them item by item, if that's okay, starting with the ones
That
that
would be
require comments, actually. Number one, there's no response necessary. Number two, again, no response necessary. Number three, the roof deck. There was discussion about the size of the roof deck, and if you go to the plans sheet A1.2, if you fast forward a couple of sheets, you'll see the roof plan. Yes, right there. You'll see that now we've shown the location of the solar PV panels, and in fact, where they're located is important as well, but we've decreased this roof deck size by at least 20%. And this is a really good drawing to show you that the roof deck is located in the very center of the building. So that, and in addition to that, the diminutive size also is important to notice. And there's a parapet around it. And essentially, for the most part, the roof deck is for the servicing of the PV panels. The locations that we've shown that may or may not be enough square footage, but we're hoping that they won't take up the whole rooftop area, and that there might be an area left over for one of the owners to go up and read a book and enjoy the sun. This deck, as you can tell from the size and the location of it as it's accessed from the second level, is not an entertaining deck. And you can see by this drawing that it would be, because of the the low wall around the entire thing, and the inability to be able to see out toward the south and any neighbors. The only neighbor that this deck would even come remotely close to seeing over into somebody's yards would be the south and maybe the west, but you can see by the location of the panels that we are, there would be no way to get to the edge of the deck to look out over the south neighbors. So in summary, we reduced the size of the deck. The fourth issue was study the clear story windows. We did study those. I think that was a comment by Fred Sweeney. You might want to go to the exterior elevations, which are the next sheet, A2.0. You can see that was the elevation that I think was specifically in question. And we feel that the clear story windows are appropriate, but thank the board for the comment, the initial comment, because we have spent a lot of time looking at the proportions of these windows and feel that they're appropriate. The fifth item was the second floor deck, and the comment was made that it need to be, you can stay on this elevation, by the way, because it shows, the front elevation shows that we've kept the low wall around what used to be a closer deck. It didn't ever come out to the edge of the south property line, but if you go back to the floor plan, go back a few sheets. We're gonna maybe toggle between, that sheet right there. You can see that we've reduced the deck, and the deck is now 15 feet. The outside of the deck is 15 feet away from the south property line. A large upper level deck is not so important, but the doors are. The ability to get light coming in all the way to the floor of the bedroom is not only something that we wish to achieve with the style architecture, but that also kind of dictated when we moved to the upper level deck back, we kept, and if you go back to the east elevation, if you move forward through the drawings back to the elevation we were just at, We've kept the low guardrail, which is a horizontal wood railing. For the purposes of maintaining privacy from the master bedroom windows. If we had a master bedroom south wall closer to the property line, and in order to achieve the full height windows, we would need to have this privacy screen. So, and in addition, the horizontal siding element balances the east elevation because the height of it is similar to the roof over the garage. Actually, what you're seeing is the ADU behind it, but we felt that it balanced the elevation. I think more importantly, it's the desire to have full length doors on the master bedroom and to maintain the privacy. We've also included a line of sight drawing that illustrates that. I think it's probably one of the last sheets if you want to flip forward to one of the last sheets of the submittal. Keep going. It was an exhibit at the end of the submittal. But you can see it, yeah, right there. That would be the line of sight with the balcony pulled back without the railing. And then the next page shows the line of sight with the screen. We're more concerned about the owner's privacy in this case. Of course, we're concerned about the neighbors, but in this case, it's their master bedroom, so they want complete privacy. So back to the exterior elevations. The comment was made, number 6 was study the overhangs and the eyebrows, which we did. We spent a lot of time figuring out depths and locations, specifically locations of these overhangs. As we get into structural engineering, which we're starting to do now, we will continue to refine these, but right now this is what we want and also what we feel is appropriate. I'm going to introduce Chris Gilliland in a minute to describe the landscaping plans, which we do now have. That was comment 7. Comment 8 was the color scheme that was submitted with, you can see it on the renderings if you want to fast forward through the sheets to the exterior 3D renderings, which illustrate the color scheme, which is a light colored off-white stucco, a weathered redwood siding, metal awnings, a dark metal and a dark bronze anodized window for a kind of contrasting color materiality, textural materiality. And you can also refer to our finish schedule. And the lighting, exterior lighting is also on that same finish schedule. Yes, that one. Yeah, you can see the materials here. And there's the lighting fixture. Again, a bronze, sconce, everything dark metal. This also, you could look down at the bottom end of that page and see a concept for the walkways. And some of you might remember that one of the design concepts that we were looking for is the incorporation of some nautical elements, and those 2 photos on the lower part of the sheet illustrate that boardwalk kind of effect. And Chris is going to talk about that. I also will introduce now, if you'll, after Chris's presentation, the owner, Brent Baldwin, would like to say a few words as well. And that concludes my presentation. To be transferred over to Chris, that is.
Thank you, Dawn.
Good, thank you.
If we could bring up, do you have a copy of the landscape plan? Hopefully. Yeah.
Board Chair Miller and Mr. Gillen, we do not have the landscape plan on hand.
Can I share my screen?
Not sure that that's possible. Was it submitted with this final approval?
I don't see, yeah, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't have been. It was one of the main reasons that we had to come back.
Okay, I can look for it real quick if you want to give me a few minutes. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
We can go to Brent next.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
wanted to say a few words, the owner.
Okay.
My apologies. Trying to get this all set up here. Thank you for your time tonight. I'll try to keep this brief since we are toward the end of the day here. Since our last meeting in September, we reflected on some of the comments from the board. Obviously one of them being the roof deck, and I wanted to just give a few minute explanation of how we arrived at this design once again, just real quickly. In complying with Title 24 with the new solar requirements effective January 1st, we're required to put a lot of solar panels, obviously, for this project. In my job as compliance counsel for an international nonprofit here in town, I do a lot of work in the solar projects internationally and here in the U.S. And one of my concerns going into this was having solar panels that are very apparent from the street on bracketing, having those inverters visible. So the roof deck, as we're calling it, is really inspired by our desire to conceal what will be a pretty robust solar panel grid on the top of our roof. We went to extreme lengths in the engineering and the design to keep a parapet line and that eyebrow line in a position that's consistent with a house that doesn't have a roof deck on it. Second concern, so that was all in an effort for the aesthetics from the outside to match this EV system.
Hold on, Brent. I'll give you extra time, but there's some weird static or some weird noises coming through. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Thank you, Brian. Is it cleared up now?
There it is. What is that?
I don't think it's on my, I heard it, but I'm in a pretty quiet office here.
There it is. Who's doing that? What? Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Miller. So really, as we're calling this a roof deck, if the board was inclined to say no roof deck at all, I wouldn't change the design because really our concern here is access to the photovoltaic panels that are going to be on this deck. As we know with technology and Tesla and other players in this space, the technology is evolving quite a bit, and we want to be able to have the ability to interchange these panels and to be up to speed over the next 5, 10, 20 years looking out. Also the serviceability of this. So while it has a benefit to us to be able to go up and have a cup of coffee and look out at Santa Cruz Island, the functionality is really what we're getting at here with this flat roof with the parapet encompassing all this unsightly equipment. Other issue, just last issue I'll speak to is the overall height and bulk and scale of this project. We kept it, I believe the total height limit here is 30 feet for this. We kept it at the top of the parapet 22.5, which was something we wanted to keep in consideration for our north neighbor when they go up to 2 stories, that they also have a view of the ocean as well. So we're trying to keep our overall project as low as possible by not putting, if we put a pitched roof on there, we'd be up to close to 28, 29 feet. So this allows our neighbor to the north of us to also see past our house when they do go up to 2 stories. Speaking to the the south neighbor, again, we've placed the place where you are accessible on the roof farthest away from that. And we have spoken with our neighbor on that side and shared these plans. They expressed their pleasure with it, that we really took into consideration all the viewpoints, as Dawn mentioned. Even with our master bedroom deck, we really studied that line of sight as we did with the roof access deck as well. And so we really came to this project trying to incorporate any concerns from our neighbors. We did miss one apparently, and that was our neighbor who resides on Mohawk down the way. And Ms. Bradley submitted a letter this morning expressing her overall concern with roof decks. And I did have the opportunity to speak with Ms. Bradley, and we had a great conversation. I don't want to speak for her. I think she might be on this meeting as well, but we had a good conversation, and I really do share her concerns as well as far as the future of this community and having unsightly roof decks. The last thing that we want to do is have, you know, what you see on the East Mesa. There's some roof decks that have, you know, the wire and the stanchions, and then you see stuff on top of their deck. We don't want that either. And Ms. Bradley and I had a good talk about that. I believe she has since rescinded her request for story poles. We plan to meet with her some more and share some of the details of the line of sight so she feels comfortable about what we're doing. And again, we're trying to keep this project as low as possible. In my final minute, I'll just speak to the centrality of the roof deck. As Dawn mentioned, it is equidistant from every property line, north, south, east, and west. It couldn't be more central and limited in the middle of the property. This was intentionally done, as was with the second level master deck, to provide the greatest amount of privacy for my wife and my child when we're in that second floor bedroom, and also for our neighbors who surround us. And with that, I'll just say thank you for your time. And if there's any concerns, I'd be happy to jump back on. Thank you.
Chair Miller, we did not find the landscape plans weren't resubmitted with the most recent set. However, they are included in the previously reviewed set. So we do have that on hand for you to look at.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of important.
Actually, sorry, Ms. Burkhardt, I'm emailing you the plan as we speak, and it's just taking a few minutes for some reason. My email's always slow at the end of the day. I don't know why, but hopefully you'll have that in a minute. And I believe the previous submittal is very different as far as landscape goes. And well, you know, I have 12 seconds, so it's great. You're gonna love it. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. So I'm trying to think here to negotiate the technical challenges here. How about if we go to public comment, and then if you get the email, maybe we can sneak it in. Can that work?
Works for me.
Is this, hello? Staff Ms. Burkhardt, are you there?
Yes, sorry about that. The plans were not submitted with the most recent submittal, so they weren't reviewed by staff for completeness. So I would hesitate to show them here at this time. There is the option to continue to another date, and we can receive those, give us a little time to review the plans before showing them here.
Okay, so.
Well, we did receive comments back from staff on that landscape plan.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney. Yes, you may.
I think it's appropriate, since the landscape plans are not here, that we would in fact have to continue any definitive action today to a further meeting. But I think we we do have appropriate time to make additional comments today before it returns.
Okay. Does that sound acceptable? So we can't give you a final, you'll have to come back.
Don?
So all we could do is give you comments on this go round, but we can't give you any design approval.
Sorry, I've been muted. I've been trying to talk, but I was muted. So am I not muted now?
No, we can hear you.
Oh,
Hi, Dawn.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. The 12-7 plans, Barbara, you don't have those? The landscape plans. So here's my comment while Barbara's looking, Brian, is, I mean, the last time I think we were even in front of you was in September. That was almost 4 months ago. It's because of the new electronic, way of doing things. Somehow it's taken us 4 months to get, I mean, I know we needed to, we had some things to do, but, and some back and forth with some comments, but I'm really concerned about holding this project up at this point. The 12-7 plans that were submitted and that were in Excella should be accessible to you guys right now. And I'm just wondering what happened to them. I appreciate and thank you, Fred.
Mr. Chair, the information is not here. We can't review it. So we need to proceed with making our comments, and they can return when all of the material is available. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Yeah, Don, unfortunately, it's out of my hands. This is a city purview where they need to present the drawings to us, and I can't negate that, unfortunately. So I'm at a loss as to what happened to your landscape plans. So I have to kind of cue off of what the city is saying to me, and if they don't have them, I can't. Our hands are tied. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may briefly, can we at least review the landscape plan so we can get comments on it today?
No, I can't. Not without the permission from the city.
Okay.
Is Barbara
Is Barbara there?
there? You
Yeah,
are.
I'm here. Chair Miller, I do see the plans from 12-7. I am downloading them. If you want to wait a few minutes.
So does this have the landscape plan included?
It does, yes.
Okay.
So, but yeah, Fred's right. We should keep moving forward with comments while Barbara's getting.
Please, thank you. I appreciate your comments. We are taking care of this. Thank you. So I'd like to move this on to, so did we do public comment? Was that complete?
No, we didn't do public comment. I don't know if Barbara is able to do two things at once.
Chair Miller, we need to wait for the presentation to be completed before we do public comment. I'm trying to get these plans to Timmy, and if you could give me a couple minutes, I'll have them.
Mr. Chair, to allow our staff to do what they need to do, I would propose we take a 5-minute break.
Okay, yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. The time right now is 5:49. Let's be back at 5:55. Thank you. Okay, I believe everyone is here. So Mr. Hamilton had something he wanted to say. He would like to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, board members, and to the applicant. I just wanted to, give a little bit of direction for how to handle this project going forward. We do have the previously reviewed by staff landscape set available, so that staff was reviewed for application completeness, and we have it for your review tonight. I suggest if you are ready to make a motion for project design approval that you do so, and we can continue the review, the more formal review of the landscape plan to the final approval hearing at consent if you choose to, just to try to move this project along. And we do apologize for the mix-up with the plans. These kinds of things do happen in the remote environment, and we appreciate your patience. So we do appreciate that. Lastly, just want to remind everybody who's not speaking currently to mute themselves. There's a little bit of background noise, and we can avoid that if everybody mutes. All right, thank you, and let us know if you have any questions.
All right, thanks, Ted. Actually, I'd like to grant Chris 5 minutes to go over the landscape plans, if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think I'll need that much. I'll be brief, but sure, thank you. All right. All set? Okay, I'll jump into it. Okay, so, sorry, okay, thanks. So landscape plan, which you have not seen yet, starting, I guess, with the driveway, fairly straightforward. We added some planting strips underneath where cars would drive through to make this as permeable as possible. And I think you'll see kind of throughout the site where it's been quite permeable. So large stone or tile covered slabs for the entry walk from the street and also from the driveway leading up to the front door. Leading around both sides are wood walkways, as Dawn had pointed out previously, at grade, also to maintain permeability. There is a large, I'm not even sure what kind of tree it is, but in the front yard, that tree is to remain, so we've worked around that. Added a few additional trees in the front. You see a nice triangulation of trees there. I think that'll help, ground the house somewhat. And then, of course, leading around the back, from the north side, through a trash enclosure. It's not really an enclosure, but there is a little a blade fence that screens that from the road, and trash cans right behind that. If you continue down that path, come to a gate, which basically brings you over to the ADU, and you can then walk all the way around to the back deck on the ADU, and then into the backyard from that location, where there's also a little fence for privacy. In the backyard, you see the sort of large table representing, a dining table sort of in the middle of the page. That is covered, so it's underneath the roof, and just out from that, excuse me, is a, we try to maximize the lawn area for usability. On axis with that back dining area is a sunken fire pit with benches, wood benches kind of around. And just beyond that, you'll see a long, slender fountain with, some sort of spout spilling into that, and a wall on the back of it. Behind that, olive trees and then a hedge. There is an existing fence already, quite nice. I believe it's 8 feet tall all the way around this the site currently, so we'll be keeping that and sort of screening it and further softening. In the southwest corner of the site will be a new jacuzzi and wood sort of decks and steps up to it with a little bench there next to it to put your towels down. I guess over towards the ADU, another tree that's a sort of a big blank wall with a clear story windows above, and we've to bring light in and figure espalier some fig trees on that wall, which I think will be nice. Yeah, in a nutshell, that is pretty much it. So take your questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Lighting. There are some light fixtures. Next sheet, I guess, if you want to go to that lighting plan. So flash up there. There we go. So minimal on the lighting. We have a few lights in the fountain, and then some just minimal path lights around the house just for usability and security. Also heading up to the front door. And then we do have two down lights in that large existing tree in the front yard, which gives a nice glow underneath that tree. And where the fire pit is, underneath the benches, just some little LED strip lighting. And I believe that's it for the plans, the landscape.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So that'll conclude the client's presentation. If we can go to public comment, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written comment for this item?
Thank you, Barbara and Chair Miller. We did receive written correspondence and it was distributed to the board before this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Chair Miller, we do have one hand raised. I'd like to call on Laura Bridley. Laura Bridley, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, your mic is live and you have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I normally use Zoom for these meetings, but anyway, hey, thank you everybody for sticking with this until 6 o'clock tonight. I just wanted to say that I retract the request for story polls that I put in the letter that I sent this morning. I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Baldwin today. I actually happen to sit on the County Planning Commission, so I feel the pain of everybody with lost plans and also of Mr. Baldwin and his architects team trying to get through today. So I think this is going to be an excellent, excellent addition to the neighborhood. Yeah, I think they're very sensitive about the way they put up the roof deck and also all of the elements of the house, the second story addition as well. So with my, can't talk fast enough, look at this great clock you guys have on the screen too. This is very cool. I've always thought the architects do much better than the planning commissions do on this stuff. You're doing great. Anyway, again, supporting of the project. I forget the story polls. I understand, you know, how it was all having to go for the solar panels, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Miller, there are no hands raised at this time, so I'll hand it back to you for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we go back to this, I guess it's the roof plan, deck plan? Thank you. Do we know, I can't read on my screen, the size, the new size of this smaller deck? Do we have a rough square footage?
Square feet.
So it's about 300 plus square feet. Okay, thank you. And then if we could go back to look at the planter or excuse me, not the planter, but the solar panels that are just below that. I'm sorry, if you stay right on that drawing. So my question is, I know that's about the square footage required for a house this size. Because I've done a few years ago, I did a house almost with the same solar panel requirement. Do we have a section configuration through those solar panels? How are they going to be mounted? Do we have a clue yet, or how that's going to happen? So I see the section, but do we know, and the parapet wall is what, 42 inches high? Do we have the architect on board?
Don't everyone speak at once here.
Can you hear me? This is Brent, the
Yes.
owner. Yes. To Director Sweeney's question about how we will mount these, they will be mounted on a raised metal grid about 1.5 foot above the roof. So
But we don't have those. We don't have that shown in the section.
well, that won't be until the Tesla, until we have that. That won't be a structural element.
No, I understand that, but I'm looking for a general configuration, so you don't have that. How high is that parapet wall?
It is, Don, is it 42 inches? Yeah, I believe it's 42. Let me double check the plans here.
Ms. Sherry,
Yes.
you need to unmute yourself so that we can hear you.
It is 42 inches. And if you look at the cutaway there, it's not 42 inches from the eyebrow. It's actually sunken down. The floor of the third of the roof is sunken below that eyebrow to give it a more diminutive viewpoint.
I'm unmuted now, but thank you, Brent.
That answers my question. Thank you. And then let's go to the second floor deck with the planter in front of it. Yeah. So do we have a landscape plan for that planter? What kind of planter is going, what kind of landscaping is going in there?
Chris can answer that question. I don't know if he has those plants picked out yet as a final solution.
I think just generally speaking, that's as space for small hedges or even what your previous applicant was talking about, a live roof. If that is something that we could do at some point, but
the city doesn't allow those kind of roofs, but
yeah,
wondering what deep planter is. Is that what we don't have anything yet, correct?
Oh yeah.
It is currently just designed.
Yeah, we haven't chosen the actual plant material yet. Fred,
Okay, so we don't have that information. Okay, thank you. Now let me go to the. I'm sorry.
We have a plant list on the plan, but we have not chosen specific.
Okay, but you don't have a plan. We don't have a section, etc. Thank you. So let's go now to the section. You had a section that showed that deck in relationship to the property line and a hedge. One of your sheets. Yeah, there you go. So on the bottom B diagram, you have a hedge, which I think showed on your planting plan. In the tallness of that, or the height of that hedge, generally, what have you drawn there? What is, I can't scale it because I'm looking at a computer. So is that 10 feet, 12 feet? Do we know what that general height is? 12 feet. Okay. And so, as I understand that, if that's what you want, then this board or staff, I've forgotten, Ms. Burkhart probably can clarify whether we have to give it a approval or not if it's at 12 feet. Okay. And then one final, can we go to the elevations? And I think it would be the west elevation. Yeah. So I'm looking at on the staircase that goes up to that top to the roof. That's a set of steps. And if I then go to the, what is it, north elevation, we'll see a side view of that staircase going up to the roof. Thought I saw that. Yeah, there it is. So that's a metal railing coming out of a metal door. And a question, by code, there's no requirement to have an exterior surface mounted light next to that door. Is that correct?
There may be, Fred. This is a project design approval only. We don't have an electrical plan, but we would probably put a light fixture there. Yes.
Okay, so it'd be similar to the two that are shown on the bottom there. And then the support for the staircase, is that floating in the air? Is it cantilevered off the wall? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's my question.
All right, thank you. Board Member Kolos, do you have any questions?
No.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, if you could go to the landscape plan. Just have a few questions. Is the wood walkway raised or on grade?
It's on grade.
Great. And could you clarify how you're managing stormwater? I'm just curious.
Chris, you want to speak to that? It's sheet flow existing.
Yeah, and
with a lot of, go ahead.
No, sorry, lots of permeability
Exactly.
throughout, and otherwise, I mean, it's actually mostly permeable aside from the house, and we don't have a civil on board yet, so I guess we're still looking into that.
Great. And I just want to confirm there's no tree removals.
No.
There is a magnolia currently in the tree in the upper right hand corner is shown, but it doesn't fit the picture. The new driveway is going to affect the roots greatly, so the plan was to take that out and add a better tree in that location.
Great, I see that now. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, questions?
Yeah, could we look at the roof plan again? I'm trying to match the roof plan with this plan, with this foundation or this landscape plan I'm looking at. Oh, now I see it. Street is over here to the right. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Joe, you were cutting out. I didn't understand the question.
Okay.
I didn't hear the question. Sorry.
I'm studying it for a second. Okay, now the solar panels are to the south. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now I understand. Okay. Everybody keeps changing their position on the page. I get used to one looking at one, and all of a sudden I got to look cross-sided. No, that's the only question I had. Thank you. And if that was a question, I answered it myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
No questions. Thank you.
I just quick question for me. What are the plate heights for the first and second floors?
9 feet on the lower level and 8 feet on the upper level.
Okay, thank you. All right, the round of questions done. We'll go back for comment. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I interrupt?
Hold on.
Yes.
I just have to say, I love technology. This is so much fun. Yes, Ms. Burkhart, what would you like to say?
Thank you. I just wanted to answer Board Member Sweeney's question about the additional hedge height before you move on to comments. That would be reviewed by staff. It's an administrative approval and not within the purview of the SFDB.
Thank you. That clarifies that. Comments. I'm in a position that I will not be in favor of this project as presented because of that roof deck. I'm just, I know Mr. Baldwin shared with us that he was born and raised in Morro Bay and used to, seaside structures, et cetera. And I know he's indicated that his family wants to be here for a very long time. But as I've said before, we don't look at the occupants. We look at the how long this home will be here, and it could be here for many more years than current occupants. So I'm not going to support this project with that roof deck. I'm also not convinced that the solar panels are clear. The information is not there. So even if I were to approve the roof deck, I couldn't give it project design approval because the information is lacking. I know we don't have purview over the roof panels themselves because of state law, but we can look at them in conjunction with where they placed on the site. And it's not clear with the information provided. I also I could approve the second floor deck off to the master bedroom, but again, the information is not provided about how that planter would work. Potted plants are not appropriate because a future owner could move the plants out of there and expand the deck. So I'd want to see a planter of some sort that has permanent planting in it in order to convince myself that that deck was appropriate on the south side of the home. Those are the two biggest things that put me in a position of not being able to support approval of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member, so I understand Klein and Colas have to step out for this, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Board member Motisha, comments, please? I can't hear you. All I hear is sounds like a rat's eating something.
But I hear a lot of somebody got their audio on that shouldn't have it on.
I can hear you now.
Yes, now I can hear. I think this project does follow our guidelines. There are some questions that aren't answered with decks, but I think because the deck, I can approve the big deck because it is in the center. A lot of the houses in the Mesa area are being designed like this, spread out, more modern. Yeah, I think this project meets our guidelines and I will support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I guess I tend to agree with Mr. Sweeney. I was just wondering where in these pictures is the solar system going to go? It just doesn't show up anywhere. So I'd like to see that before giving real approval. But I tend to like the design and probably would approve it.
So thank you, board member. I would like to make a suggestion of all board members when making comments of the style to kind of avoid saying like or dislike, but to go in context of the compatibility of the neighborhood or the, whatever. Like you say, it fits it's like, for instance, Jonathan, you would say you feel that the style of this house fits the personality of the neighborhood or whatever. You understand?
Yes.
So it's not this, we're not voting. We're just kind of like, it's, our purview is to, the appropriateness.
Do you want me to re-say what I said?
No, not at all. No. But just kind of, because that leads me into my comment, and it's interesting because I've been struggling with this house because it's and I think Dawn's design is beautiful. It's nothing about the design, but the style of this house is a break from the normal, already established neighborhood, but it was already determined from a previous meeting that the style of the architecture was appropriate. And I am uncomfortable that we've lost two board members who can't speak about it because, obviously they didn't see it. So I hate, being in this weird position. Like it's funny, this whole reason that this design board was created in the first place was, to kind of, neighbors were getting upset because houses were being built that were too big or they didn't match or whatever. And people come into these neighborhoods expecting it to be a certain way, and then someone else comes in and changes it, and then they get upset. And then, so here we have this board. So we're kind of in this uncomfortable position of like determining the appropriateness of the size, bulk, and scale and style of the architecture. And so there's nothing unique about this house that calls it Santa Barbara. It's something you would see anywhere else. And I would think there should be some kind of a Santa Barbara look to it. And like, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's something that has a Mediterranean flair to it, or it somehow it adopts the already established neighborhood style, which is these cottages houses, but apparently it's a very eclectic neighborhood, which Joe says is evolving, which is valid. So I'm just having I'm just struggling with this. I don't like being put in this position of having to have them come back again. Yet I think aesthetically.
May I say something here, Chair?
Yes, can you tell I'm kind of struggling here?
I think we're kind of backpedaling here. We did approve, I think we approved this 6-1. And if I remember, you were, I'm guessing, but I think you were the one that dissenting vote.
Right, exactly.
And we have led them in the direction that this design is, 6-1. You are the dissenting vote. In general, the board is in favor of the approach to the style. I think we're backpedaling here. I think this style is what we have led them in the direction to go, and we should stay in that direction. And yes, there are a few things that, as Mr. Sweeney has brought up, that he can't support it because of. And I am in the favor that this house does meet our criteria, which I've just stated, and I make it a point not to say it's what I like. It does meet our criteria, and they have matched. They have satisfied all nine of our comments here.
Okay, I thank you. I really appreciate this, actually. And I also want to add that the neighbor retracted her need for story poles, which means they followed the good neighbor policy. So under that context, like I said, I'm a little uncomfortable, but under that context, I will support this project. So there you go. So with that being said, so I guess they're here for design approval. And
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I could clarify before someone makes a motion, I don't intend to make a motion, but it appears to me that we have two choices here.
Yes.
We can certainly make a motion for project design approval with comments, as we sometimes do.
Yes.
We could not give it project design approval and ask for a return to provide additional information about the configuration of the solar panels and the planting of the roof deck and anything else that appears not to be available. So it seems to me that's probably the two approaches the four of us can make a decision on. So one is to give it project design approval with comments, and the other is not to give it project design approval but return with additional information.
Okay, with all due respect, Fred, I hate to say it, but I think the onus is on you to make the motion unless Joe wants to make it.
I would like Fred to make it.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion for the project to return to the full board with the following comments: that additional information needs to be provided for the section and general configuration of the solar panels, understanding the board does not have purview over the solar panels themselves, that they also return with a clear section and plan for landscaping the proposed landscaped area at the second floor roof deck on the south side of the house, that they return with clarification on the length of the antiquated 12-foot hedge that's appropriate to the landscape plan. And I think that's it. I didn't hear any other concerns about other information lacking. But I think we need that information in order to determine whether or not to give it project design approval. So that's my motion.
And I second it.
All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Colas,
Abstains?
Board Member Klein,
Abstains.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now I'm trying to turn off my webcam.
Good luck with that.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
So we have one more item. Boy, are we late?
I think this project, this one is postponed.
This
Oh, it
one's
is?
postponed. So you can adjourn the meeting, I assume, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'd like to adjourn the meeting for February 1st. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your time, and congratulations, Katie and Leslie, for making your first motions.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.